I'm probably just going to keep the chat open, not the video itself, so it's less choppy and there's no, I guess, reverb or anything.
No, I've got my headphones on, so it should be sounding pretty clean, even if from my end anyway.
Good. Yeah, I just turned on the video real quick, and it seems fine. So, are we good here?
I think we're people wouldn't in chat would have told us. There's a nice little comment from Flickr.
Mm. Yeah, it's been a while.
It's the world we live in, right?
Yeah, there was a slight issue with getting Discord to work with the mic, but now it's all good. So
I'm a bit low. Okay, I turned myself right down, so I'll back myself back up a bit so that I'm a bit close to equal. But now that we should be pretty close to equal, I might be slightly quieter. But hey, I'm not the important one here.
Well, I guess if audio is good and everything's good, such and such, I guess we're set to go.
Get kicked in, yeah. So, look, I guess what I wanted to open with is I found Icy an interesting moniker. Where did that initially come from?
I've gone through multiple variations of the same sort of thing. Back in the day, I'm sure like many kids, playing video games would always ask you, type in your name or whatever. So, like Pokemon or something like that. So I usually would just type in my name. And eventually around, I guess the early 2000s or something like that, I felt like changing it up to some sort of other, I don't know, whatever I thought was cool at the time as a teenager, pretty much. And so I went by different variations of like Ice, Icy, and silly prefixes and that sort of stuff until I just toned it down to just simply Icy. So
it's naturally cool,
I've had
right?
Yes. I think I've had this handle as it is for about, I don't know, like 8 years or so, but some sort of variation of Ice, Icy, or something like that for about probably close to 20 years now, actually. So it's just something I picked so many years ago and just sort of stuck with it. So
8 years ago was
nothing too interesting.
The kind of time that you joined the Elite, is that right?
A little bit before it, yeah. The Elite wasn't my first sort of dipping my toes in the speedrunning. I started off with Double Dash, actually.
Oh, interesting.
I had always sort of, yeah. So I for a long time, I was involved with task videos, and I never really got into actual speedrunning for quite a while. It wasn't until around like 2012, 2013. So basically, I would always just watch stuff on task videos as they would come out. And Ocarina of Time was going through all sorts of new strategies coming out. There was the whole wrong warping thing and basically beating the entire game as young Link and going straight to Ganon's castle, all those sorts of things. And normally I would just, watch a task of something, but obviously it takes a long time to make something like that, especially for a complicated, glitchy mess of a game like Ocarina. And generally, if you want to have like a high quality, optimal task, it takes months, sometimes even years, even sometimes with a team. So I didn't really have anywhere to look at this, but I was really interested in all the things that were coming out. So I was watching real speedruns and watching the world record go back and forth. And eventually I stumbled upon SRL, Speedruns Live, which isn't quite the same thing as it used to be, but it was really good at filling a niche at its time. And eventually I started thinking,
where it was at the time, yeah.
Yeah. And so I was starting to think, like, maybe I wrote this off before. Maybe I should try this myself. And I was just looking through my drawers and bins for what could be an interesting game to speedrun. And I picked up Double Dash. I'm like, oh, this could be fun. I checked out the rankings on the Mario Kart site. It has all the Mario Karts, and Double Dash, of course, one of them. And I thought it was really cool that it had all the rankings from like hundreds of players. It has all their times for all the levels. It has a standard system, so you can roughly tell how good your time is, say like comparing level to level.
Yeah,
it's really like arbitrary.
I really like that standard system. It's really clever.
It's a good system, yeah. Yeah, it has some issues because, as said, it is sort of just made up, but it is pretty accurate. And just they have like time rankings, they have average finish, they have your the percentage of your personal record off of the world record, and just a whole bunch of stats. I was just overwhelmed by this. I'm like, oh, this is super cool. So I got really into Double Dash. I did that for about 3 or 4 months until around February 2014. I was getting kind of burned out. I did okay. I got to about top 250-ish or so, and I did pretty good on Baby Park. I think I got a top 30 time on there because I grinded that really hard.
I like
And
Baby
I was kind of
Park.
getting bored of it. Sorry?
I like Baby Park. It's a cool little level.
Yeah, it's very simple and it's very sprinty in nature. So yeah, so I was kind of thinking just going back to task videos and doing that sort of thing. And I noticed on the most of the Mario Kart rankings, they have a bunch of external links, and one of them was the Elite. I'm like, oh, what is this? And I found GoldenEye and Perfect Dark rankings, and I was just again like same kind of thing, like overwhelmed by the amount of just data and information there is. Like you have videos for everything. You have a nice world record table with all the initials. You have the point rankings, time rankings, leaders. You have pointless times, this LTK side leg thing. Just an insane amount of data to play with. And watching some videos, I'm sure a lot of people do this. They look at some of the simpler levels, especially like say Dam or Runway, and they look very simple to play. Like you just go in a few lines and then you exit. I'm like, oh, I can do this. Because one of the things with Double Dash is obviously to drive well, you have to be doing MTs all the time, and it's very technical. It's not really my kind of thing. I definitely like the strategizing side more of not even just speedrunning, but video games in general. And Double Dash is just pretty much purely tech skill. So I thought uh, removing that element and just being able to focus on, I guess, sort of your thinking of the game rather than, mashing a whole bunch of buttons to just simply move. I figured, yeah, I'll try this, get into GoldenEye and Perfect Dark, and, rest is history, I suppose, as they say.
Absolutely. So, like you've talked there a few times about like data and info being something that kind of pulls you in. Is that something you see coming out in the things that you're interested in outside of video games and stuff like that too?
Somewhat to an extent. I think like one of my big drives in general is like knowledge and like optimization and strategy, not even just in like video games, but board games, card games, and even just real life stuff as well. And it's kind of fun to play with because when you have things sort of like broken down into just numbers, like the points or like the times stripped to just seconds, you can do a lot of very accurate kind of data, playing with it and like looking for trends and that sort of thing. um, I wouldn't say it's as big outside of like gaming because it's kind of hard to, it's a matter of like measurement. It's really hard to measure a whole bunch of things very accurately in a very objective form, the same way you can do with what's essentially applied math with video games, computer science programming. Um, like say for example, like if you go like if you're into like running or like working out or whatever, you can sort of put numbers to things like reps or like how much you can lift or how much long you can run for and that sort of thing. But it's not quite as straightforward as something like just numbers in a video game. And as mentioned, I really like that sort of objective nature of video games and mathematics in general and that sort of thing.
Yeah, interesting. But
Mm.
so we obviously can't talk to you without talking about LTK. Did the transition to LTK from regular ranks, did that happen quickly, or did you find that after a little while?
I sort of dabbled in it a little bit initially because when I first started, I'm sure like most people, they get into the games and they get into the regular levels because it's not, again, like LTK is in a sense like an arbitrarily defined sort of challenge, as opposed to just the main game, which is like here's the game. So I started off with the normal mode, of course, and I noticed the LTK rankings on the sort of rankings website. I was looking into it and like, oh, this is kind of cool. It seems like a pretty cool challenge. I watched some runs, especially a lot of Bozon stuff because he was sort of the main LTK guy back in the day. And I got a few early completions, mostly levels that were a little bit more iconic. Like I think the very first one I did was Facility on DLTK, just because I would say maybe not to everyone, but at least to me anyway, Facility is kind of like the iconic GoldenEye level, possibly because of the cheat associated with it. And I thought DLTK would be really cool with it. So I got a decent time at the time. It was like 10 minutes something. But I figured it out all on my own. It was really fun. So I was like, maybe I'll try to do a few more of these levels. And slowly I got more and more into it. And as I was playing the normal mode, I was struggling quite a bit for some reason. I'm sure I'll touch on it later, but I couldn't figure it out for a long time. And I just figured I was bad for whatever reason. I was taking, very sharp lines. I felt like my door presses were quick. Leg was pretty well controlled, but I was just slow and I couldn't figure it out. So with that sort of being a problem, I got more into LTK. I'm like, hey, at least I can do decent at this. And I completed more and more levels. And do you want me to go straight into like the attack ship and all that type of stuff?
I'm very interested in that, please. Yeah.
Sure, yeah. So as said, I just kept completing more and more levels, and eventually you get to the point where, not necessarily at the halfway point, but like when you have a good majority of the levels done, like, I guess I should keep pushing and try to complete all of them, right? So I finished all the PDLTK levels, like the LTK difficulty, and then I started chipping away at DLTK. The second last one I finished was Escape. That one took a while because I tried all sorts of gimmicky types of strats, but eventually when I went to what was considered more normal at the time, I got it pretty quick after that. And so naturally, no one had beaten Attack Ship, and it seemed pretty hopeless. But the way I'd been going through most of the LTK levels is I was coming up with lots of new ideas and strategies. Some of them kind of quick, some of them kind of consistent, and just a big mix of things that make the level better to play. And so naturally, yeah, seeing that Attack Ship was the last one, I figured, well, I'm not going to have too much hopes for this. I'm sure it's incomplete for some reason, but I figured I might as well try. So
no one's
unlike
done it
a lot
before.
of the levels in... What's that?
It's just no one's done it before, so you got to work it out.
Yeah. So a lot of the levels in PDLTK, you have the advantage of killing most of the guards in one headshot, sometimes even just with explosions. But the main obstacle with Attack Ship is the Sketter don't die very easily. Even with their weak point, with the tail, you have to give them quite a few shots to be able to kill them. Charged Mauler Shot does do it, but ammo is quite tight as well. So there was a lot of major obstacles, as well as, just surviving. There's no shields or body armor or anything. You can't get hit once. You have to drag Elvis everywhere you go as well. But little by little, I kept figuring some things out. Like I figured out how to deal with the hanger. I figured out a way to deal with the start. One of the big breakthroughs was finding out the little Elvis trick where you can punch him through the door and he falls to the bottom, and then he doesn't distract all the scatter for the rest of the level after he's done with the star maps. And it was at that point like, okay, everything seems pretty difficult to beat, but at least you can see like a possibility of it being completable. So I was starting to take it much more seriously then, looking for more strats and trying to figure things out. Like again, barely anyone had touched this at all. I had to figure out everything on my own. And one of the big problems that I had with strategizing, because I was still fairly new to figuring things out and strategizing at a level like this, was generally if I would find one solution to a problem in the level, I would just stick with that rather than necessarily looking for something better. And that caused a lot of problems because most notably the star map room trick to kill the scatter is really awful. It takes forever. It's extremely stressful, but I didn't bother to look for one of the better stats that we have today. So essentially what I would do is after dropping Elvis off through the door, which would probably take me, like I would get there maybe once every 2 hours, by the way, I would slowly lure in scatters into the star map room. And between the green holographic thing, the star maps, and the little brown platform it's on, there's a 1 pixel little gap that scatter can see you. So they'll shoot at you, but they pretty much can't hit you so long as you move in very precise manner. So you lure a scatter, you run in there, you wait a while, they come into the room, and then they start firing at you. And again, you can't take a hit or you're dead. And then they run around a little bit, they fire at you some more, and eventually they run out the door, exposing their tail. And you can't get too close or else they'll just turn around and kill you. So basically, you have to do this, which takes maybe 40 seconds each time. And then you have to take a long distance Mauler shot, hopefully hit the back of their tail and kill them. Again, Mauler ammo is quite tight as well. So it's basically just 20, 25 minutes of just complete stress. Like my BPM was probably triple digits every time I got there, for like the entire time. And yeah, I just kept grinding and grinding at it. I think it took me like 70 hours to beat, and I pretty much just was doing it nonstop. Like again, with the primitive struts that we had, I would get through the hangar maybe once an hour, and then the next sort of midsection, maybe I'd get through there like in total like once every hour and a half or so. And then I have to do this big stressful thing for 6 different Skedar, and then go to the top, and then there's this ending strat that's crazy. And it was extremely nerve-wracking. It was very, as I said, very, very stressful to go through. It took me 3 runs at the top to get a completion, but it was really, really cool to get it, because at this point I was only in the elite for like less than 4 months, so I got myself on the map pretty early on. And it just felt really good to have like an objective sort of feat that I've accomplished. Like if you do like competitive head-to-head games, you can always say, oh, I was playing better, oh, my opponent was playing badly, or whatever. But when you're playing a single-player game, you have just the direct feedback from the game itself. Like whatever you do, that's how do I articulate this well? It's kind of like, if you're playing a multiplayer game, you can win just because your opponents are bad, or just plain bad. But when you're doing something single player, you have to you can't work around that. You have to just beat it. So as I was saying, it felt really cool. And one of the big things from that is because, as I said, it was so stressful doing that and so nerve wracking. Pretty much everything else after that pales in comparison. Like I've done all the other LTK levels over time. All the crazy good runs I've had over the years, where you're at the end of a really good run. For most people, they start to panic. I'm not a robot. I certainly still feel a little bit, but I'm very well controlled in my nerves. I always like to flaunt that a little bit because it's
Nothing
fun.
can match that first attack ship TLTK.
No, absolutely not. Yeah. So like even at the end of like train and silo, like I'm feeling completely calm the whole way through. And so as I was saying, like beating attack ship DLTK so early on in my speedrunning career, it was very tough to do, but it gave me a really good foundation for what was to come. And yeah, later I pushed LTK a lot more. I'm sure we can touch on that some more later, but that's basically the groundworks of how I got into LTK.
Yeah. I didn't quite realize that attack ship DLTK was so early in your LTK career. But what kind of tools were you using to strategize and work that out?
What do you mean? Sorry. Oh, like tools?
Yeah, so
pretty
like
much
using tassing, or were you using like not full DLTK health or something like that, or like no enemy damage or that sort of stuff?
Yeah, generally, what we do in LTK, I always recommend this to new players, is when you're trying to beat a level for the first time, do some practice runs with invincibility, so you can sort of get a feel of the flow of the run. So you can keep track of things like ammo and like guard management, pace as well. If it's there's certain spots where you need to be fast or what have you. And then once you feel pretty good about doing invincibility runs, is you set DLTK settings, and then you put the enemy damage to a minimum so that you can tell the spots where you would get hit, but you don't die, so you can keep doing the rest of the run and practice everything. That's pretty much what all I had to go for me. Function Explorer didn't exist. We had very primitive knowledge of the level. Again, I had to figure out everything on my own. So essentially, I would just play around with cheats, test ideas, and then when I would practice runs, I would try with invincibility. When I was feeling good about that, I would try with enemy damage minimized, and just grind it at that until I got it to work.
Yeah, interesting. And in terms of the timeline of DLTK completions, was that before or after Silo DLTK? The Boson got the first completion there?
Boson finished Silo DLTK in 2013. I believe it was April, somewhere around there. He didn't actually finish all of LTK until a little bit after. His last one to beat was actually Jungle DLTK, and it took him about another, I want to say like maybe 9 months until he got them all. Jungle DLTK had been beaten by other players, but no one had beaten all 20 of them. Boson was the first to do that because obviously he had Silo first. And then Attack Ship DLTK, it was like mid-July 2014. Fun fact, it was one day before the Ocarina 1810, pretty much when I was relaxing and sort of still in a celebratory mode after being in Attack Ship. I was just watching streams, and the very next day, one of the most famous speedruns happened, the Ocarina 1810 by Narcissa. So that was pretty neat. I think it was July 17th, 2014, something like that.
That's pretty cool. That would also maybe explains why I didn't initially hear about it, because I remember actually seeing some gaming press talking about Boson's Silo DLTK completion, but I don't remember anything about the Attack Ship DLTK completion. But if it got completely smashed by 1810, I would understand why that happened.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't think it would have picked up too much publicity anyway. I mean, Perfect Dark is kind of, I guess the spiritual successor and also kind of the sister game of GoldenEye. Wasn't as big of a deal in the grand scheme. But I mean, a few like random YouTube videos kind of picked up on it, so that was kind of neat. But I did it for the completion, not for
not
cloud,
for the,
I
not
guess,
for the,
or anything like that.
But I mean, in some ways,
no, I just did it for myself.
In some ways, it's kind of the final frontier of PD in from a certain perspective.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's still definitely the hardest PDLTK level. It's much, much easier today. Quite a few people have beaten it without too much struggle. GoldenEye LTK still has quite a few challenging levels. But yeah, Attack Ship DLTK is definitely the hardest level still.
Yeah, I just absolutely. I mean, as a kid, I was terrified of playing with. The only reason I ever played with 007 mode, or I couldn't unlock it on Perfect Dark, was to turn everything down to 0, and that made the levels fun to play.
It's kind of fun, yeah. I think Wouter actually did sort of a side league of sorts. I think he called it Light LTK, where he would play with all the settings at 0 and try to beat things as fast as possible. It didn't get a whole lot of popularity, but it's just kind of neat.
Yeah, I think I've seen some forum posts about that. It looks like an interesting kind of side league.
I think some levels could be kind of with it, but I have never looked into it too much.
Staying around those kind of early days for you, were you always a primary PD player? That was the one, well, not the one game for you, but the game that you were more interested in initially?
Well, fun fact, when I was moving on from Double Dash, I initially was going to get more into GoldenEye, but I was having a little hard time trying to find a cart, so I picked up Perfect Dark first. I played that for a bit. And Perfect Dark is still probably one of my favorite N64 games. I got it fairly late compared to when it came out. I think I first played it in 2007 or so, and I was just overwhelmed, like how amazing it was. And then when I actually got an expansion pack for the game, I was blown away again. Like, oh wow, this is actually a full game. I thought it was just like a really cool combat simulator type of thing. I would say it was primarily a Perfect Dark player after playing a bit of GoldenEye, because it turned out not to be as easy as I thought it was. Because I kind of like that simple style at first. Again, starting off with Dam, I figured I would easily get the world record. I got 54 fairly quick. More comments on that later. But Perfect Dark eventually started to appeal to me more because, again, like I love the strategizing and routing sort of aspect of the gaming in general, not just speedrunning.
Yep.
So slowly I did move over to become more of a Perfect Dark player. Maybe around mid 2014, probably around the time I was getting more into it in LTK. Because even within LTK, like I finished Attack Ship and I still had 6 more to go in GoldenEye. I finished 4 of them, and then Train and Silo didn't come until like years later. So yeah, I would say I've been pretty much a Perfect Dark player since like 2014.
And like, because you got some, had to scroll through your times page. in preparation for today, and like stuff like Chicago 16 as a 70-pointer when you were starting out.
Yeah, I mean, it was a pretty dead game. Actually, around the time when it came, um, Perfect Dark was experiencing a sort of world record drought. We went 363 days with 0 world records until Goose tied Ace's AFO 53. There was a couple close calls, like Mouser almost got War 25, and I think Boss or Clemens might have been playing something, but nothing came out of it until Goose got it. So world records were dead. Most of the top players were inactive, and pretty much all the way down the rankings was pretty dead too. So, yeah, there was a lot of free pointers. Looking back at some of that, yeah, like Chicago 16 for 70. I got Defection 6 for 97. A lot of those basic times, just tons and tons of points. But the game is much more active and much more cleaned up now too. So I mean, it's still much easier than GoldenEye overall, so long as you can, beat the levels. But the points are still not quite as free as it used to be anymore. It is kind of fun with that new feature though on the rankings.
Yeah, that's if you were to tell me, if you were to ask me who broke a 363-day world record drought in Perfect Dark, Goose would not be the first name that comes to mind.
It was very interesting. It was with an Untied Slayer as well, which was kind of neat. He did implement one tiny new strat, but for the most part, he just beat it. So it was pretty cool.
So earlier you talked a bit about tassing, and that was kind of your entry into speed gaming as well. Can you tell us about some of the earlier games that you're tassing around and messing about with? What was interesting for you there?
Yeah, sure. Actually, I'll touch on how I got into that in the first place. So, sometime probably around 2006, 2007 in high school, I was in computer class, and like most teenagers at that time, probably still the same kind of thing today, mostly just screwing around online. And I was just
bet the
watching
only
videos
difference is
on,
they're
I
not
guess,
playing Flash games now. They're playing some
or
HTML5
yeah,
games because Flash is dead.
yeah. God rest its soul. But yeah, I'm just screwing around online, watching things on Google Video, or maybe like really early YouTube. But anyway, so I stumbled upon, I was just watching video game videos, and I stumbled upon a video of the original Mario Bros. And the gameplay was just like something I've never seen before. Like it was just absurdly skilled. And like I consider myself, even back then, like a decent gamer. I was sort of the gamer, I guess, amongst my friends. And just watching this video of this guy destroying Mario, I was just completely like sucked in watching him. Like, this is insane. Like, he's going so fast. He's like dodging all these obstacles, even throwing in a little swag here and there. So I had my friends watching too, like, yo, check this out. This is sick. And after I was reading the description of the video, it's like, pass, tool assisted speedrun. What does that mean? So I looked it up, and so pretty much the initial reaction from most of my friends were like, oh, it's just hacks or bots. Who cares? Which I think is a very common response even today. But for me, I was just sort of driven in by the concept of tasks and the like the hypothetical limit of a game. Like I had never thought of a game in that sort of manner, and I was just driven in like, well, if this is what Mario looks like this, like what about other games? So eventually, I stumbled upon task videos, and even back then, when task tools were very primitive and there weren't as many people and there weren't as many just tasks in general, there were still quite a few for most of the popular games like Mega Man, Zelda, Mario, Pokemon, all that type of stuff. So I watched tons of those all the time. It was super cool learning about new glitches and learning about like strategies and routing, like tons of stuff in Ocarina of Time, of course, and just seeing like outerly like out of this world gameplay was so cool. So I hung around task videos for quite a while. I didn't get into tasking myself until around 2009. It's actually the reason why I've made a YouTube channel in the first place. Like my earliest videos are tasks of Mega Man 4 and looking into like glitches and stuff, because not only do task tools allow you to create these amazing movies, but being able to do save states and frame advancing and re-recording and all these things, you can play a game in a way that you never were able to before. You can try all sorts of ideas at like a frame by frame sort of precision. So I was doing all sorts of stuff like that for, again, Mega Man 4 was one of my favorite games doing that. Lots of other games too. Nothing really pops in my mind at the moment. I published a few tasks on task videos, 3 of the same run, or 3 of the same game, Urban Champion, some bad fighting game for the NES. So that was cool. And in early 2010 was around when Mario 64 tasks were coming out with that game like crazy, and people were working on a 120 star project for trying to make a really cool task of it. And there was like dozens of people. It was taking years and years of progress. But the thing with Mario 64 is you can sort of think of each star as like an individual level, and except for adjusting RNG, you can literally copy and paste the inputs of an individual star and then just glue it into the main 120 star run. So basically what people were doing is for each of the stars, they would save a frame here, save a frame there, come up with some new crazy route, backwards long jumping into new crazy ways that we never saw. And I was just watching that all the time. I thought it was super, super cool. So I was just really involved in task videos and tasking in general, did a bunch myself. And like I said, I was really into tasking. I didn't get into real speedruns until much later. So so onto the thing of like tasking projects. It's the thing with tasking is, as I said, you can sort of push a game in ways that you've never seen before. You can try new things that you never thought possible. It's also just really fun to make movies of like, showing off gameplay. I've made so many things for so many different games. Even with GoldenEye, I'm actually today I was working on a fresh task for GoldenEye, and I know what the time is going to be, but unfortunately I wasn't able to finish it for tonight. I may have gone on a little bit of ramble. I'm sure that'll be common tonight. What did you initially ask me? I completely forgot.
Just about where you got started with tasking and some of your early task projects.
I guess, yeah, okay. I guess I touched on that, so that's good. Tasking is really cool, and I think more people should get into it if they have the ability to do so.
And the whole show is just supposed to be rambles, so it's sort of supposed to be thought triggers and let you ramble for as long as you want to.
Yeah. I'm sure people know I'm fairly long-winded, and sort of go on tangents like crazy. That'll be a common theme here. So
was the
I'll try to keep in mind what you initially asked me.
No, that's not irrelevant. That's just a thought starter.
Right.
Was that Super Mario Brothers run that you're talking about? Was it the SMB3 run that was kind of going around the internet at that time?
I know what you're talking about. That was a very famous task. I think it was one of the first ones. But no, the thing that I watched was Mario 1. I think it was the original game, and it was like a full like warpless run, like going through the 32 stages without skipping any of them.
Yep.
But the Mario 3 task you're talking about, I think it's by a guy. I can't remember his handle. I think it's like Memento Mori or something like that, It was one of the very first tasks ever made, and it wasn't labeled properly, so a lot of people didn't know it was a task back in the day. So some people thought it was just some crazy guy who's not just like a god at a game, but like unfathomably good at a game.
That was how I eventually thought about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
You mentioned before that you played Perfect Dark without an expansion pack. I probably should have asked you a little bit more about that. So you just spend time, because I'm trying to remember what features are enabled and disabled. It's like the combat simulator for 2 players, and it's
not a whole lot. Yeah, I mean, at this, like I said, I got into it around 2007. Like at this point, I was mostly playing like GameCube games. A little, I think Wii was out at that point. I was playing some friends' Wii stuff. I might have the timeline mixed up, but in any case, one of my friends who played a lot of N64 games suggested it to me, like, yo, this is probably the best N64 game ever came out. It's probably better than Ocarina of Time and Mario and all this. Like, oh, I'll try it out. So I got Perfect Dark without the expansion pack, and I was playing it. And like, even as it was, I did genuinely think this is one of the coolest games, because I'm not really a lore guy when it comes to video games. I do like just raw mechanics, or like just raw challenges, or just just like basic gameplay, but with lots of customization or like really good design to it. And the Perfect Dark Combat Simulator is really good. Like you have tons and tons of features with all the guns, all the different modes. The simulants are quite good, surprisingly for AI. You have the challenge mode. You can play multiplayer, of course, and I thought it was really, really cool. I'm like, yo, this game is great. Who cares about like storyline or why are we here? It's like, no, let's just play a game, have a good time. And I thought it was great. And my buddy told me like, wait, you don't have an expansion pack? You gotta get one of those. Like, oh, okay. Because I never had any games that required it or really made use of it, so I got an expansion pack. I tried it out, and like I said, again, I was just overwhelmed. Like, oh, this is a whole actual game. Like, there's a single player, and then again, the same kind of thing. There's just tons and tons of content. Like, you have the firing range, you have the hologram training, you have co-op, you have counter-op, which is really cool. You have the gadget mode training. You have the main menu, for the most part, is in the lobby, which is a really cool idea, especially because it's Carrington Institute, the starting place of the game, which becomes a mission later on. It's clearly a product of love. Like the people who made it just made all sorts of cool ideas without feeling restricted on what they feel they should do or what have you. And I think that's how you get those like very rare gems like Perfect Dark, or a lot of people say the same sort of praises about Undertale. I've never played that game, so I have no opinions on it, but I've read a lot of people
it was
talking about
created in
it,
a similarly
saying like,
unrestricted environment.
yeah, so like Perfect Dark, pretty much instantly one of my favorite games of everything. Definitely my favorite N64 game. And that's pretty much how I got into it. So yeah, I played it casually for years and years. I played tons of Combat Simulator, and as I said, I never even really considered speedrunning it until 2014 or so when I got into it.
I mean, the obvious speedrunner question off the back of that is: were you playing 1.1 or 1.2?
I think I did mostly play 1.1 at the start, like a lot of people do. I did that with GoldenEye as well. But before even getting into speedrunning or even really reading things online, I was playing. Again, I was exploring all the things that are in Perfect Dark. All the stuff in the options and menus and that sort of thing. And I was looking at the different control styles, like, oh, let's try some of these, see if they're good. And the main thing I liked about 1.2 is like you do ensure that you're going as fast as possible because your movement forward is digital rather than analog with a stick. And also, just as I'm sure most people know, N64 sticks get destroyed. So it was kind of nice that I could, not be doing that. So yeah, I got onto 1.2 for quite a while. Fun fact though, when I first got back into Perfect Dark, I did start initially again with 1.1, but pretty much in a few days in, I switched back to 1.2.
And so you spent a fair bit of time on Combat Simulator. I'm interested what your character was made up of, if you remember that, and what your rank.
I pretty much always use the biotechnician, just because I don't know, he looks kind of cool.
Yep.
He's like masked and sort of blends in with a lot of levels, and has that big square head instead of something a little more human looking.
Yep.
Yep.
Do you know what ranking you got down to?
Oh, yeah. So I did grind for that. One of them is really dumb, where you have to run 9,000 kilometers. I did have a few nights where I just left my N64 on to try to bring that up, but even with that, it was going up so slowly. Like, I'll stop at rank 2. I never did push to rank 1 because it's.
Oh, you got down to rank 2.
It's not a challenge. So what's that?
You got rank 2 is pretty impressive.
Yeah. I mean, it's just mostly there's ways to cheese it, and some of them are kind of tedious. Some of them aren't too bad, but needing to run 9,000 kilometers just takes way too long. It's mostly a waste of time. So I never bothered doing that. Yeah, it's not a challenge. It's just tedious. So I can't be bothered.
Yeah. I even to get down to like my profile got down to killer 7 back in the day, and even to do that, I was leaving the console on overnight and running around in circles at the bottom of Egypt or something.
Pretty much, yeah. There's tricks for all of them. Like there's the remote mine trick in Felicity. There's running around with cyclones to burn through ammo. You use the Farsight thing to get all 4 medals
Yes.
each run.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure pretty much anyone who's tried to push the ranking have done all that. I have to say, though, rank 2 is kind of lame. Like, you have near perfect instead of all the other cool ones, like invincible, assassin, killer, near perfect. Like, oh, Great. I'm stuck with this now.
They're just kind of taunting you to try and go lower.
More or less, yeah.
Earlier, you kind of said there's a bit of a story around your damn 54. So what's the story there?
So for a long time, as I was saying, I couldn't figure out what was causing me to be so much slower. Um, like I played a ton. I thought my lines were really tight. I thought my movement was good. Leg was well controlled, all that type of stuff. But I was just losing time. And I couldn't keep up. So I just figured, like, man, even though it's like only 1 second, I'm guessing that these guys are like precise to the pixel with their lines and that sort of thing. Like that's the only explanation I could ever come up with. And it wasn't until like over a year within GoldenEye and Perfect Dark, um, where I learned about how full speed works. So it's,
Oh,
to be fair, it is kind of unintuitive, yeah. Where you have to hold C up for like 3.5 seconds, and then it flips like an on-off switch. It's not like a gradual acceleration. And for quite a while, I played natural grip, and I figured like, yeah, okay, maybe I'm losing like a frame by letting go of C up for just that one frame to push B button. But yeah, that's not how that works with full speed. And even switching to Alien Finger later when I first visited Flickr, he's like, no, don't play natural grip, play like this. I'm like, okay. So I switched to Alien Finger, but I still didn't understand full speed. So even with that, I was playing levels badly. And just in particular, any level with lots of doors, like Silo and Archives, my times were just atrocious. And as I said, I could never figure out why. And I figured it out in the weirdest way possible. Well, possibly anyway. Yeah, so sometime in 2015, I was watching a random Woda stream. He was playing Frigate, and he was talking about just like the memory addresses and variables and stuff. I guess he was working on Project Nesquik at the time, and he was talking about like your speed, your velocity, like basically he was explaining full speed. Like, yeah, it works like an on-off switch. I was listening to this like, hey, is that how it works? I had no idea. This is amazing. And so basically, as soon as I heard that from Woda's, I popped in my cart and I was testing this. I'm like, oh, this is crazy. This is going to save time on like every level. And I was testing like all the different things, like what triggers it, what makes it go away, like letting go of C up, or pushing R, or pushing pause, or like getting into a tank and all these things. And like I thought this was like a pretty unknown thing. So basically, I made a whole bunch of videos and a giant forum post, as I do, about how full speed works. And pretty much the initial response is like, yeah, we all know this. How do you not know this? I'm like, oh. And unfortunately, I deleted the thread pretty much right after because everyone made fun of me. So, but once I understood full speed, I just rocketed up the rankings and everything. Like GoldenEye flew up the rankings, Perfect Dark flew up the rankings, LTK. Even though you're mostly trying to complete harder and harder strategies, like I was saving time here and there, and I think I went from like 50th to like 25th in Perfect Dark in like 3 weeks just by just demolishing all my times. And yeah, so the reason why I keep bringing up Dan 54 is because if you watch it, again, this is before I knew full speed. My lines are good, but I let go of full speed to press B at the button, at the gate, and at the lock gate. So I lose full speed in 3 different spots. I don't think I even have a boost. I have like a weird side boost in that run. And I got 54, yeah. So sometimes I wonder, like, if someone had just watched one of my runs and told me about full speed early on, maybe I would have got damn 53 when it was still like maybe like 20 people had it or whatever it was. Maybe I would have rocketed up in GoldenEye. Well, maybe I should be a top 10 GoldenEye player. But yeah, no one told me. Apparently, no one watched my runs. And I only figured it out just by pure chance on watching a Wodo stream. And similarly with Depot, I think I spent 12 hours to get Depot 27 because I had the same problem. I kept letting go of speed every time I had to push B. And then 26 took me like 30 minutes. So, and yeah, that little fact will come into play, I'm sure, a little bit later on, because full speed caused some more problems. But we'll get into that later on.
You mentioned your famous or infamous, depending on how you feel about it, forum posts. I didn't realize that you'd made a big full speed one, but like there wasn't as many, particularly getting started resources. Like there's a couple of big forum posts that you've written about getting started with GoldenEye, the GoldenEye Player's Guide to Perfect Dark and stuff like that to try and transition people over to the dark side.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's an LTK one too.
There is an
Make sure to
LTK
read
one.
it.
There's an LTK history one too, which is quite interesting.
Yeah, I wrote that quite a while ago. Yeah, it's kind of
Is
basically just like being a noob and sort of being in the dark. It kind of sucked, of course. There wasn't I mean, even in early 2014, before the Twitch era really sort of exploded, there just wasn't as many players, so it was kind of harder to get like mentoring or having people watch runs. So I tried to do a lot of work to try to help noobs. Like I wrote a bunch of tutorials and like basic things on how to get better, like starter guides and stuff like that. I watched a lot of runs of like new players, like, hey, you did really good, congrats, and like here's some tips on how to get faster, and so on and so forth. Mostly, I didn't want the same thing that happened to me to happen to basically every other player.
made sure they knew about full speed nice and early.
Yeah, absolutely. I have a nice little big blurb in that in the GoldenEye guide. We have the video series by Fletcher, which is really good now too.
That was literally the tipping point. Like I'd kind of skirted around GoldenEye for a long time, but that video series was what made me go, oh yeah, maybe I'll give this a go. Here I am.
Yeah, I'm sure it brought in a lot of new players.
Like back in your GoldenEye times pages, it blows my mind looking at those mid 2010s kind of era times, like Cavs 104 at 44 points when you got it as a new player.
Yeah, it's been pretty wild. I don't know if like I don't know how well you did your research, but I used to do big data posts on the forums. Have you seen those at all?
I haven't come across those. No.
Ramble about those. Okay, well, yeah, basically, I started this in early 2015. As I said, I think data is really cool, and because a lot of stuff in GoldenEye is very discrete. It's like cut to the second, and points are just raw numbers. You can work really nicely with them. So I used to write basically monthly posts on like the trends of like how many points every single time with points lost over the month, and I would keep track of the point rank changes amongst every single player. Like I had monthly snapshots of the entire rankings, and I would not just share just the raw data, but I would write giant posts about them too. It took a lot of time to do all that, as you can imagine. I did that for about 2 years, and then at that point, I wasn't really breaking any new ground with it. Like I guess it was still kind of interesting in terms of just data, but I got kind of tired of doing it, so I just stopped doing it. But yeah, I have colossal spreadsheets that are just loaded with that sort of stuff from that sort of era, like 2015, 2016. I think one of the things with showing off like how little, like how few points certain things are worth, I tried to push people like, hey, this is only like 1 point left. You want to go kill it? And then, as the community also got larger and larger, things like 104 being worth 44 points is long and gone, and now 102 is sort of nearing that value itself.
Yes.
We have the SDESD now, or the SDES.
Yes.
Single
SDES.
digit.
Single digit elimination score.
Same kind of thing. Yeah. So it's really interesting to see the progression of the rankings. I've spent a lot of time sort of thinking about the ranking stuff. I really like the sort of metagaming and the even like philosophy behind like games in general. And I have definitely spent a lot of time like analyzing the rankings and stuff. It's kind of neat to see where the point rankings are going. Like people are a little concerned, like, what if points get a little too hard to get at some point? But it is also kind of nice that, again, it has like that discrete objective measurement of what things are worth and like how good players are by getting certain times. It's not just like a big mess of like tenths and hundredths of thousandths of a second where everything's just a big spread. No, everything's very clumpy. So the GoldenEye and Perfect Dark get a lot of flack for being rounded to the second, which I can understand if you're used to like RTA or even ILs of games that do have decimals. But I really do like everything being rounded to the second. I think it's really cool.
Yeah, I think for the people who are in the community and playing the games, that's part of the attraction to it.
Mhm.
It's, like yeah, like
It's always outsiders who say it's dumb, but everyone that plays the game thinks it's amazing. So
yes,
don't fix it.
yeah,
Don't
like
don't break it.
I'm hung up on this because it was the time I got last night. But my Aztec SA 135, it's probably a 135.97. It's it's not a super clean 135,
Mhm.
but it's rated the same as another 135 that's a 135.1 and is a slightly cleaner run or has an extra boost or something like that. And I really kind of like
Yeah.
that about the rankings.
It's kind of fun, yeah. I mean, certainly it kind of hurts when you get a low decimal run because, if you push like, say, I don't know, let's say damn 54.9 and you push it all the way down to 54.0, you've gained nothing in terms of the rankings. I mean, like that shows that you're getting better as a player, but in terms of like very direct reward, you're not getting anything for that. So there is certainly that valid criticism. But yeah, it is also kind of fun when you're on the beneficial end of it, where you're just barely getting a time, and you lock that in. Where 54 or sorry, like 53.9 and 54.0, that like tenth or two gets you so many more points over your potential competition or what have
Or
you.
Wally's just joined chat. I can't tell you how many 17.0 runs I've seen him pump out on archives in the last week or two, and still doesn't have
Oh
his
yeah,
16 on the end screen. So
yeah. You've gained absolutely nothing so far, so you better finish the job,
um,
James.
from you mentioned before that Mario Kart's got this giant set of data and stuff like that as well. Is there anything that you would like to do? If you had a magic wand and go and make any changes to the rank, maybe not changes to the rankings, but additions to the rankings in order to have more data to play with or make it more attractive for new players to come in or anything like that?
I think data wise, I mean, it has pretty much everything. Like it's you have to start stretching to like add more uh, like data. Like you're taking sort of like formulas or like measurements of data itself. Like say you're taking like the average of someone's standards and average finish or something like that. Like the raw data that you can really derive from just your runs, or it's pretty much everything there. So I think it's fine in terms of that. I will say that they could use some videos though. One of the big draws when I came to the elite is starting with like Mario Kart, Double Dash especially. There was like no videos of anything. Like a lot of the world records didn't even have videos. Some of the world records had videos, but it was that replay feature. And if you're not familiar with Double Dash, you can save ghosts, but if you try to replay your run, it's not from the perspective of when you're driving it. It's from the perspective. It's
It's
just
like a
like a free
drive-by
cam, like
camera.
hovering around you, so you can't really see what's going on. So, like some of the world records, it would just be like that, or some of the world records, the videos for them would just be like someone racing a world record ghost, but not the run itself. So it was hard to learn anything. You had to figure out everything on your own. But the Elite's great; they have videos for everything, pretty much. So yeah, if Mario Kart wants to sort of enter the 2000s, a good start would be having videos for things. They have videos for the world records, so that's a good start. But they're still lacking pretty hard on a lot of that.
Yeah, am not jealous of their rankings updating twice a week or three times a week or whatever it is compared
It's no,
to.
it's not even that. It's like twice a month.
Oh,
I
right.
mean, the Mario Karts are different. Like, I think Double Dash is every week. Actually, no, I think Mario Kart 64 is every week as well. But they only do like I think it's like bi or semi-monthly big like update posts, like just to talk about all the changes on the rankings. But yeah, I think they only update it once a week. So technically only 52 times a year. So if you look at the elite rankings, whatever time span it took for 50 new PRs to be added to the database and technically updating the rankings. That's how long it takes to match how long it takes Mario Kart to update in a year, or like the number of times it updates in a year.
Yeah.
Anyway, irrelevant ramblings about bad rankings aside.
Would you like you mentioned the standards kind of thing that Mario Kart has? Is that that's something that you could apply across GoldenEye or Perfect Dark, or because of the
I actually made a thread trying to push for that, but it was heavily rejected. People thought it was way too subjective to sort of define. And the other thing is, like with standards with Mario Kart is, again, you have like a continuous flow of time save. Like you have tenths, hundredths, thousandths of a second. So you can sort of create standards a lot more precisely, I guess. Whereas in like, you know, like Damn Agent, there's only 2 different times worth points. Are you really going to be able to make good standards for that? Like, we can't even make a tier system with only essentially 7 tiers, not even really using the 8th one. And we already have tons of arguments about that. So trying to make tiers for every single time with points, or even going beyond that with non-points, is not going to happen. I tried it. People didn't like it. And I do agree with the general response that, yeah, it can't really work.
You mentioned before Goose got the was the one that ended the Perfect Dark World Record drought. He one of the other unexpected Goose PD happenings was an Untied on MBR, but that was somewhere you also got a Untied, right?
Can you tell me about that? Well, I would definitely say MBR is quite the story there. So where do I want to start this? So so I guess the first, technically Untied I got was Attack Ship DLTK. It's pretty easy to get an Untied when you're the only one ranked. So, I mean, it counted, it sort of didn't count. The first LTK Untied I got where I actually beat someone was SOS DLTK. I can't remember the time, it was so long ago, but I beat Boss on it. And around October 2014 was also when I started hanging out with Flicker. I got him into LTK. He started getting Untieds. I think his first one might have been on Streets DLTK or something. And then we had the big war on War DLTK. That's a pretty good story. I'll touch on that later. But anyway, the main thing is obviously when I was finding all these strats in LTK, I was thinking, well, maybe I can find something in the main game and get an Untied like that. Like obviously I'm not a very good player. I also didn't know full speed at this point. But I was thinking like maybe I can figure out some sort of level, like break it and find a strat and get an Untied. That would be really cool. The first few good PRs I got Defense 52 for, I think it was 14th place, and I got Investigation Agent, which was 4th place. Those were my first bops on top players. I'm like, this is really cool. I got to push for first on the level. Not even just like a tied world record, but I want an Untied. But of course, again, I didn't really have any sort of ability to do that. So I tried and tried. I tried to break so many levels. The main one I worked on was Man SOS, because I figured if there was a level that was going to be broken, it was probably going to be that one. Like on Agent, you run to a computer and push B, and it takes you over 1.5 minutes to do that. If there's any sort of out of bounds or any sort of way to like get to the end faster, you're going to completely break the level. So I think over the course of all these years now, I've probably put in 100 hours in just SOS trying to find something, but I just was never able to find anything. I don't think anything exists in that level. So I tried a bunch of other levels. I tried Deep Sea, I tried Escape. I couldn't find anything. So I just continued on with LTK, minding my own business, getting LTK Untieds, nothing too exciting there. And eventually what inspired me was Skirp on Depot Agent. He got that warp and he got 26, but yes. Pretty much right after everyone was warping and getting Untieds. And I thought, like, if on GoldenEye, the more popular game, on Agent, the faster, easiest difficulty, with a strat that was already known, just never used, to be fair, people thought it was impossible. If that was able to break a level, that has to suggest there's something in Perfect Dark, the underplayed game, the more complex game, the longer, harder game. And so when I saw that, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna look for more stuff. And so I revisited MBR. I did originally do the bomb spy strat with the idea of Cass going up the ladder and then just pushing her at the end instead of having to push her all the way. Ask any old school player, that old strat was awful. But it never really panned out to anything. So I was trying it again, like maybe I can get something with it. And just one magical day, right after Skirp got his warp, Cass instantly completed. I was running around outside of her office, and I figured maybe that triggers something or some weird thing. And I thought, maybe this is finally my chance at an Untied. And I was pace checking it. It didn't seem like it was possible, like doing the what's known now as the icy strat. It wasn't looking like I could get an Untied. Like it was just barely too slow, even with Cass instantly completing, because it's such a detour to push her in there. And then you got to run all the way up as well. So I was talking with Flicker. We used to talk all the time on Skype, discussing LTK and just the games in general, hanging out because we did like dozens of meets, maybe not that many, but a whole bunch of meets anyway. And the main idea with me trying to break a level was I was going to try to break something bad enough that we could both get an Untied, and maybe if we're lucky, we can both get an Untied sweep. But I was telling him about this MBR thing I found. Like, okay, Cass can instantly complete. But I don't think it can get an Untied. I'm gonna try for it. Is it cool if like you just sit back and I grind for it and like yeah okay go for it. So I grinded it, and the very first completion I got was MBR Agent 119 with the cast completion strat, and Boss's Untied Sweep, the longest standing Untied Sweep, like for the greatest duration ever, at 7 years, was just gone by some new player. And obviously with 119, I'm like, okay, I got to get this Untied fast before someone else gets it. So I never posted a video for my 119, and I played all day. It took me, I think I had 5 119s before I finally got 118, and I got my Untied. So that was really, really cool. It was such a cool moment. I managed to break a level. I got an Untied as a fairly new player. I think this was in April 2015. So yeah, it is kind of a neat fact, Goose. So so later that day, I figured, okay, it was an okay run. I think there's time to be saved. I'm sure the top players can get it. I think 114 might be possible, right? And so again, this is where full speed comes into play. I was losing time all over the place. I did not know about full speed. I
So
didn't learn
you got
about
no
it
time
until
with no
after
full
breaking.
speed.
No, I broke a level such that over a minute was cut in the game before learning about full speed. So naturally, I was just bleeding time everywhere in the level, and so I thought only like 114 would be possible. And pretty much immediately that night, like the most insane gold rush ever. Maybe second to Aztec, but it was just insane. Like Goose started with SA. He got a 7-second Untied in I think 3 hours of play, which was faster than my agent time as well, which was really funny. And then SRT was streaming on Twitch. Fun little story with that. So SRT beat my 118. He got 116. He streamed it. And for whatever reason, he doesn't like to post on the rankings. Usually he would just go on the forums and post a new PR and have someone else post it on the rankings forum, usually Axel. So SRT posted 116. And people were telling him, no, you got to post it on the real rankings. Scott, you got to get your Untied. Hurry before it's too late. And like 13 seconds after he posted on the forum, Goose posted 114 on Agent, which was technically an Untied. It wasn't streamed though, so technically by today's standards, which didn't exist back then, because of the continuous proof of streaming, SRT would have been rewarded 116, but he was rewarded it anyway. So Goose got that, and then again the gold rush continued, and the way it happened was it wasn't just like some top player like Boss just jumps in and like unties 10 seconds and that's it. Started with me as like a really new player who didn't know how full speed worked. And then Goose, who doesn't normally play Perfect Dark, got his Untied. SRT, who's a decent player, got his Untied. And then I think the next one was Mouser. He got an Untied Sweep, and he was the first one to use the new strat in Perfect Agent. Struggling with Agent to get an Untied, I figured there's no way it's possible in PA. But with just shooting down the lift, it still saves time. So Mouser swooped in and got an Untied Sweep. And then Alu started getting stuff. Axel got a PA Untied. It was just crazy. And then finally, Boss finally came in, and he cut, I think it was only like 2 seconds each, because again, the progression of player skill getting untieds was pretty much straight linear. It wasn't just one super good player just gets it all at once. So yeah, but Boss untied swept it. Carl came back from the dead. He untied swept it. And then Boss and Carl went back and forth. Ilu was playing a lot. He was trailing behind in third the whole time. And then Trent came around. So fun fact, earlier before this whole MBR stuff came out, I did post as a fun fact, like, hey, if you blow up the level and you have all the objectives complete, you still complete the level. That's kind of cool. I tried to make it a strat, but there was no way to do it. And there's only 3 other levels that have that sort of instant end, which all fail because they're tied to objectives. Defense blowing up, deep sea blowing up, and AFO crashing. MBR is the odd one, though. You can blow the level up and everything still is completed. So yeah, so Trent came in with the help of Matt Cook. He figured out how to use that skitter bomb strat, which is now known as the Trent strat. The 2 main things, the obstacles that he figured out, was way how to survive the explosion by being in that weird out of bounds spot, and also the fact that you can jump out the side of the building with cast still completing. So by figuring those 2 things out, Trent got an untied sweep. Unfortunately, he recorded it with a GoPro, so it got backrolled, and he was never credited with it. But the gold rush continued, and it basically got a hard reset. Boss and Carl kept going back and forth. Ilu trailing in third, and Boss and Carl pushed it to 55s and 104, I think. I can't remember. And they were talking in Twitch because Discord wasn't a thing, and they didn't really use Mumble all that much. Discussing strats, and I remember Carl was saying, hey, like, I figured out these little time savers, promise not to go for 54, and Boss never promised that. And then he got 54s, and then he got 102 as well. Ilu still trailing behind, and then just at the end of April, just as League was starting, Ilu got the insane skip on PA, and he got 101, which was really, I think that was a good redemption as well, because he had been trying so hard, and then he got the untied on the hardest one with a crazy skip as League was starting. So it was really, really cool. And that's where the untieds, the world record stood for like 5 years until MW took him out. Yeah, so looking back
Ilu
now,
reaction is legendary.
yeah, it's a great video. Yeah. So, oh, did it? Yeah. Ilu, I think Ilu had some untieds, yeah, but he didn't. He was struggling behind Boss and Carl after. But anyway, yeah. So it's a very bittersweet feeling, because it was very cool to break a level like that. And I did get an untied, but I most likely blew the easiest chance at an untied sweep in history, just because I didn't know full speed. If I knew full speed, I would have easily had an untied sweep. And on top, Flicker would have had an untied sweep as well, because that was the idea. Like I was saying, like I was trying to get us both an untied sweep, and I felt really bad for it because I kind of screwed him out of it indirectly, accidentally. But fortunately, now today, Flicker got an untied, and he got an untied sweep, so that settled itself. But yeah, I think, like, I tried still to get an untied sweep. That is a major bucket list item, but I think that ship has sailed. I tried to break so many more levels in the same manner, but it never happened again. But the thing is, after I broke MBR, I was thinking, like, okay, that was really cool. All this excitement and Gold Rush was coming out. I was wondering if maybe we break some more levels. Like, again, I was really motivated by Skirp getting the warp, and so I kept looking for more strats. And 2015 eventually became dubbed the year of the new strat. It wasn't all by me. There was lots of new stuff by other players, but I did find a lot. Like, I discovered Arlene's on S2. Randy did most of the development of the strat, but I was the one that initially found it. As a collaboration, me, Randy, Wodas, and I believe Spec figured out the drone strat on Cradle. It was known in the past by a few players. I think Luke actually has an Agent 35 from like years and years ago with the drone strat, but I guess no one looked at it too seriously. So we figured that out. We broke Cradle. Cotton W, some random guy, found out the shooting the early guard on Streets Agent can set up an early spawn, which would later lead to 2 grenade launchers. So that was really cool. Randy pieced it together. I think he was the first. No, Luke was the first one to get 112 with it. Randy got it shortly after. I think that's the right order. What else broke? Pelagic 2 agent. Yeah, boss suggested like, hey, I wonder if there's a way to do this. And like 5 minutes later, I was trying it and I broke Pelagic 2 agent just doing the warp. And a lot of people thought it was really embarrassing that such a basic idea led to it like broke a level in 2015 where you just warp between these two pipes. Apparently, Boss and Henrik tried the idea before, but they did it on the right-hand side, which is a lot tighter. There's not space to do it. And me not having known the idea of the strat before, I just tried the left-hand side. I warped right through in like just a couple of tries. I'm like, oh, I just broke another level. And that led to a bunch of untieds. What else broke? I did tons on LTK, of course. You can pretty much name a level.
There's a good
I'm sure I
cliffhanger
broke something
here,
on there.
I want to go get a refill on my water and stuff. So we'll take a short intermission, and when we come back, you can tell us more about the levels that you broke.
Yeah, honestly, I'm sure you're aware it's quite hot here in Canada, and the heat wave is hitting a bit here. So I wouldn't mind a little, grab some water and stuff. So yeah, if you want to set up intermission and whatnot, go for it.
We'll be back very shortly.
Okay.
Yeah, I heard about Canada being, what is it? It was like there was 46 degrees Celsius, which is what, 110 Fahrenheit or something like that around there.
Yeah, British Columbia is basically on fire right now, both
No, I should.
figuratively and in some parts
Yeah,
literally.
yeah. That sounds like Australia
Yeah,
gets
we're
in the
getting.
summer.
Yeah, I'm sure it's nice and cool down there. Yeah, but even here we're getting hit pretty hard in Ontario. It's pretty hot, but yeah, just gotta stay hydrated, right? You need your
That's
Nightbot to remind you.
that's right.
You don't have that, do you?
I do not have Nightbot. Nightbot is actually banned in my chat. I don't have many people
That's a
banned.
respectable decision. Yeah.
But
Okay.
I messed around with Nightbot for 5 seconds and it pissed me off, so I just banned it.
There is a bunch of other different ones. I know a lot of people have also programmed their own bots. I think Abney has his own Abney bot. He's a programmer and stuff.
Yeah, yeah. I think those ones are far more interesting where you've got some actual custom features rather than just that. Although, you know, if you're a big time streamer, like the way that Clem was using it on Aztec for the, you know, strat marker instead of having to explain strat every 5 seconds is definitely definitely worth it.
Yeah. Well, if your stream is more towards like a casual audience, you're like, what are you trying to do? Why are you shooting that guy? It's good to have those kind of things where you can just like hit the exclamation mark strat. You can learn all about it, but you won't read about it anyway. So
Yeah,
at least you tried. But
exactly.
to MW's question regarding Mario Party 4, I've never tasked GameCube. Game like Dolphin Emulator doesn't have the nice task input where you can just like you have like a piano roll and you can just punch in what inputs you want. So yeah, I'm gonna have to pass on that.
I'm
If
kind of
it's an
shocked about that.
N64 game, though, I could do that.
I thought, I mean, thought that the GameCube, I guess maybe it's the accuracy of Dolphin is quite well regarded rather than its tassing.
I mean, it does have like task tools. Like the sort of old school way of tasking is like when you literally manually play the game, like you're using, I guess, like your keyboard or like a USB controller, and then you just like re-record and save state as you play. But like more modern tools, you have like a piano roll, as I said. Like you basically a big grid on the left-hand side. You have all the different frame numbers, like 0, 1, 2, 3, like all the way through however long your movie is, and then along the top you have all the buttons. So you can just basically push like, okay, on this frame I want this button pushed, on this frame I want the stick held this far up, and so on and so forth. That's pretty much the only way I know how to task. I never learned the old school way of doing it, and GameCube, at least with Dolphin, is still kind of primitive in that regard. So I mean, I could probably figure it out, but I don't really want to. So you're on your own, buddy.
So when Dolphin has some proper tasking tools, you might consider it.
Absolutely, yeah. Oh, there's so many great GameCube games that would be good for tasking, but
I'm
yeah,
surprised that
unfortunately, it
MW is
doesn't.
not asking about Pokemon Snap tassing, trying to maximize all the
I've
scores there.
I've actually had a few people ask me about that, but I've never played the game, so I probably wouldn't be able to make a very good task or anything. It would probably be a lot better if someone knowledgeable of it learns how to task rather than a tasser learns the game. I mean,
Yep.
I'm sure I could figure it out, but I'm not really all that interested in it. It seems kind of cool though, but no,
Yes.
I mean, opportunity costs. You can only do so much.
That's it. Time spent on that is time not spent on other things.
Mm-hmm.
You talked before we took a intermission. We were talking about 2015 being the year of the new strat and how
Mm-hmm.
you contributed to a whole bunch of levels. And we talked about, you sort of mentioned the Surface 2 Arlene, mentioned the Cradle drone strat. What other ones were you kind of coming out with at that point?
As mentioned, like a lot of LTK stuff.
Yeah.
Trying to think what else came out. Like I did find a lot of other stuff in different years, but for 2015 specifically, there's also lots of little, not necessarily strats, but like innovations. In particular, on Investigation Agent, the sort of initial way people would laser skip is they would sort of strafe along the side and then turn into it. I was the first one to do the thing where you look perpendicular with the walls, like parallel with the lasers, and I felt it was an easier way to laser skip because you have more perception of where you are relative to the little platform and the lasers. Um, so the sort of icy style laser skips became a lot more common. People seem to find it easier. A lot of people find it they're indifferent to it. Like they'd rather just use Carl's style and go faster. Um, but like little things like that, I came up with as well.
Is it true
We
that
look at the levels.
Joe's head is bigger on Japanese and it's harder on Japanese, or is that a myth?
Unfortunately, I was the one that spread that myth because there's a lot of sort of out of bounds things that you can seemingly only do on NTSCU, but I later found out that they are possible in Japanese. So I thought maybe Joanna's sort of hitbox was a problem, but I do believe that is a myth, and I don't think it's true, even though I was the one that spread it. So my bad. Um, I have a sorry. I have on my YouTube a quintuple laser skip on the Japanese version, so I think that's some pretty strong evidence that it's not an issue.
Yep.
Cradle DLTK strat. No, I actually didn't contribute anything to that level. That idea of running to the bottom has been pretty much the initial way to beat the level. I think originally by Eddie Lovins. There were some new techs discovered, but not by me. Like Henrik found the sort of R-leaning thing at the bottom, so that you're going in and out of Trev's radius, so he throws grenades more often. And the Luge found a few things with looking up and down in the right way, so you can get past guards at the beginning. Yeah, I just got the Untied on it. It was sort of, it's a lottery level. I spent like 35 hours trying to get it. Nothing too exciting really there in terms of strats from my part, but I just saw an opportunity and I grabbed it.
Hoping for the grenades take out the console then as well? You're not running up there to then
yes,
take the console
yeah, you have to do that. It's quite rare to get either B or A, and naturally you need both of them. Generally, Trev will die in 4 grenades. Sometimes it takes 5. I do have a video linked on my PR post for Cradle DLTK where I had Trev throw 6 grenades and neither B nor A completed. So that's pretty cool. What a fun level. But it's basically like the suicide strat, except you need it to work 4 times in a very small time span.
Yep.
The little R-leaning trick kind of helps because, as said, the way it works is when you go in and out of Trev's radius, he's more prone to throw grenades. You may ask, well, why don't we do this in RTA? And the answer to that is you should, but for whatever reason we don't. So there you go. But yeah, it's basically suicide strat on crack.
Yeah.
But yeah, I failed 249s with Trev dead, no A complete. 50 would have been good, and 51 is okay. But I have no plans to improve that.
No thanks, not that kind of lottery. I can understand why you'd be done at that.
I did my job. Someone else can do it.
So is I guess you're talking before about wanting to get Flicker and yourself an Untied sweep, ideally. Like there's obviously a kind of key friendship relationship there of playing. You two both you've got, I guess you've got a few commonalities from what I can see as a person from the outside. You know, both started playing the game at the same ish sort of time, and both Canadians, of course. You know, so.
Yeah, we lived in the same, like I was living in BC at the time in the greater Vancouver area, so was he. He started in, I think, 2013, though technically he does have times from way earlier than that, and I started in early 2014. And funny enough, though, he was taking a break from the games around when I arrived, so we didn't hang out until October 2014, like half a year since I had joined. And at that point, I was already really good at LTK. I had everything beaten except for Train and Silo. I was ranked 3rd in PDLTK at that point, under Boss and Deep Darkness. And so basically the first time we met, like, okay, I'm going to teach you LTK, and you're playing it, so buck up. And he struggled at first, of course, which is natural. Like he would do very risky things and die and get mad that he died. Occasionally he would YOLO things and get away with it. He found a few levels that he really liked early on. Like he really liked streets, DLTK and LTK. He got untieds on those pretty early on, and I think his DLTK untied has been standing for like 5 years now. We're pretty close to that, and we went back and forth a lot in PvLTK as well. We hung out
Street's
quite
a
a
really
bit.
interesting level, like an LTK DLTK, because it's like one of the easiest levels to survive on SA00, but it's one of the harder levels LTK DLTK, right?
Which level is that, sorry?
Streets, because of all the
Streets,
spawning
yes,
guards.
yeah. Yeah, the spawning guards are the main issue. Yeah, it's not too bad. It is a bit of a long level. In particular on DLTK, you have a problem at the start because there's 6 guards and you're strapped for time. So basically, you need one to throw a grenade. It usually you get a run maybe every 20 minutes if you're lucky. Kind of sucks.
So it's like Bunker
why
100
my PR there
kind of
sucks.
thing, where you're hoping for a guard to pull a grenade, take him out.
In the same sense, yeah, you are waiting for guard luck in a different manner. But yeah, it is also tough to complete. Streets DLTA is often one of the last ones people beat, just because of the timer is quite tight, and a lot of guards are quite tough in dealing with the spawns and all that. Yeah, but Flicker, he figured out a niche. He was quite good at it, and that was one of the levels. I found tons of strats for. Henrik contributed quite a bit to it as well. Flicker found a few little tricks here and there as well. Like it was a good collaboration, but yeah, Flicker pushed it really hard. We went pretty well back and forth on a lot of PDLTK levels as well. We do have different play styles where I'm generally more well-rounded. I have a generally higher point floor on everything, whereas Flicker generally pushes for those really good untieds or world records or what have you. So we didn't actually clash head-to-head too often because of that. The most notable one was very early on in both of our LTK speedrunning careers, as well as in general, was War DLTK, the War it became known as.
It's the best name for a
At the end of
ever.
yes, at the end of 2014, I think on December 24th, Merry Christmas. Me and Flicker, again, we were talking on Skype all the time, trying to find new strats and breaking levels and all that stuff. And we were watching a bunch of War DLTK levels. The world record was 233 by Taka, and compared to the 53 at the time on PA, that's a lot of time loss. And so we were thinking, like, there's got to be some time savers here. So we were analyzing the videos of the next best runs. Taka didn't have a video of like Wouter and who else was there? MG. I think David K5 has a video. I don't know, a bunch of videos anyway. And the first king that you run up to, a lot of people would just hide behind the corner and slowly shoot it at the head until it dies. Whereas instead, we would run past it and start shooting it at its tail as it would turn around, because it doesn't chase you if it can't see you. So it just, it does that initial Reaper blast, but you can usually run by it, and then he just turns around and you have free tail shots. Like, oh, this is way faster. And another thing that was quite common, not in every run, but a lot of people would kill the second king and then hide from the spawns that would appear near the third king's room after that. And instead, what we did is we would kill the third king, then go back for the second one and just blow it up. Like after damaging it enough, a single explosion from a phoenix would kill it. So we did it in reverse order, and that saved a bunch of time. And so basically, when we found all these time savers, like, yo, we gotta get this untied here. So basically, we were having a race, and I got 232. I'm like, oh, I got a tied world record. Like, no, that's an untied. You beat Talk. I'm like, oh, sick. And then pretty much like, I don't know, like 20 minutes later, he beat it, and then I beat his, and then we went back and forth in the span of like 2 days. And eventually, I think I got the first sub 2, like 158 or something, and then he really pushed it. He got a really good run, 148, and that was like, okay, I can't really beat that. But a little bit later, maybe a month or 2 later or something, I came up with like a really absurd idea. Like, instead of going up this ladder and going around the level and hiding under the bridge from the scatter and waiting until they run by, what if we just charged through them? And naturally, with DLTK, like the 1000% accuracy and 4 scatter all over the place in random positions each run, it's kind of hard to survive, as you can imagine. But I figured, if I can get through this once, maybe I can get a really sick untied. So I pushed for it, and eventually I did get through it. And unfortunately, the time I first completed with was 148, so I only tied him. But then Flicker pushed back. He's like, "Okay, I'm gonna use this strat too," and he did. And so again, the war continued. We went back and forth, and eventually I got 131. And I'm like, "Okay, I'm gonna push this once more. Let's get the sub, the half-minute sub." Fun fact: 129 is one of my few streamed PRs, let alone untieds. I think Henrik watched it, and that was it. It wasn't exactly a popular stream, but yeah, I got 129 after grinding for like half a day, and that was where it stopped for a long time. That was pretty much where the war halted. Later on, when Boss got into PDLTK, he was pushing for all the world records on DLTK, and we were trying to prevent it. And I was grinding war DLTK again like a crazy person, having 129 and deciding, no, let's go further. I couldn't get it. I was pacing like 127, 128, and Flicker got 126. He like killed it. I'm like, okay, he's got that. That should prevent Boss from getting all 21 DLTK world records, because that would be pretty embarrassing.
It's like the
but as Boss progressed,
PDLTK version of the A1A.
It was exactly like that. I actually made references to that. I referred to the war sketters as the Moo Farm moles, actually. So,
Yeah.
Same kind of thing, basically. Yeah. So yeah, he got 120. Yeah, Flicker got 126, and Boss slowly and surely got to 20 out of 21 world records. He was missing war DLTK. Me and Flicker were scrambling, trying to prevent it. We were unsuccessful. Boss did get 126. So that was where the war stopped again for a while. And fortunately, the very next day, Flicker got AFO 121 on DLTK, and Boss never got back to 21 out of 21. So it didn't last very long, but he did get it. Yeah, now today he only has duel and defection. So it's kind of wild to see how things changed. Yeah, so again, war didn't continue for quite a while until summer of 2018, somewhere around there. I was thinking of playing it again. Like, again, I was coming with absurd ideas. Like, what if, like the old runs, we kill the second king before the third one, and we just, scoot around the spawns? And the initial idea was I would run up to the door and fire a phoenix shot into the door, blowing myself up and the second king. So then I would have time to adjust my positioning for the scatter. Unfortunately, on the run that I pushed pretty far deep into there, I accidentally killed the second king with Callisto, so I couldn't position properly. But very fortunately, there was only 2 spawns. Usually it goes up to like 3 or 4, sometimes even more than that. And they're usually in bad places, like they warp through the door and then you just get shot as soon as you go in. But I managed to scoot around them. I was in the third king's room. The scatter weren't coming back. I'm like, okay, I got an untied here. So I blew him up, and I got 122. I cut 4 seconds. I was just going for the world record. I would have been very happy with 126. And not just to get an untied, but to get a 4-second untied was very, very cool. It was a very strong record. It was very YOLO, very dumb, very much a lottery level. And I thought that was going to stand for quite some time. But our friend in the chat here, Dr. Light, decided otherwise. In, what was it, Project 2020, I think, he unveiled that he got 118. He did the same strat as I did, but he was very quick, and he got very lucky as well. Because it is still war, you do still get door jams, you do still get scatter in inconvenient places. It's hard to pace even with invincibility on because of that. And funny enough, he beat my 4-second untied by 4 seconds. So I kind of got obliterated there, unfortunately. And that's where the war has stopped.
So
I have considered going for it, but I have considered going for 118 or even better. But it's not the funnest level, I will admit. It is kind of a cool level. It is kind of a unique strat. But no, Dr. Light can hold 118. I'm content with second place there. So anyway, going back to your question regarding, yeah, me and Flicker played a lot for, like we played lots of LTK. We had a lot of untieds, usually on different levels. Like again, despite playing the same league and that sort of thing, and like hanging out all the time. We have very different play styles and very different abilities. I would say your like OCB OCGA is pretty close to equal. I definitely would give Flicker the upper hand, but I do have the like I was saying, I have no issue with nerves at all. I can handle very tight, stressful times now, especially after attack ship. So yeah, we're really good at different levels. I eventually pushed for first place in Perfect Dark LTK League, which was really cool. I held that for close to a year. Obviously, with the 100-point boost from having attack ship DLTK and no one else, helped a lot to pass boss. But eventually, I did get over 100 points over boss, so it was a legit sort of championship, I guess you could call it.
Yep.
And the way I got up there was, again, with so few players, and when you're that high up the rankings, the best way to get closer to your rivals is not just to push yourself up, but to pull others down. You want to bop them hard. Doing untied flips, like if I'm in second and boss is in first, and then I flip that, that's a 6-point difference right there. Like a, yeah, and those add up quite quickly. And with Flicker also coming along, even if he would just get second place and bop boss, that's another -2 for him. Or if even if he would bop me, he would usually bop boss as well. So boss was just bleeding all over because he only played briefly in 2014. He wasn't very active until quite a bit after. And yeah, after I got championship, I held it for about a year. I didn't really defend it too well because I mean, it was cool, but I didn't care about it that much. Flicker eventually took it from me. He held it for, I think, close to a year, and then Boss took it. And Boss held on to it for quite a while until Pollywood came. So, you know, that's sort of the top 4 in Perfect Dark LTK as well, all past champions. Because again, it's not a highly contested rankings, but you know, just a little brief history on that. Yeah. We've pushed it pretty far. There's a lot of yellow on that world rankings table now. It's really cool that how far it's come. The total time for the DLTK difficulty on Perfect Dark is now faster than my original attack ship DLTK completion. So that's pretty cool.
that's wild.
Yeah.
So like the whole game, all 21 levels, I guess, are completed faster than just the single stage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. Yeah. I mean, again, because I use such bad strats. Because again, I found a solution. I didn't look for any others.
And you say bad strats like it's something that no one else in the world had ever done at that point.
Mm-hmm, yeah. I mean, I did find most of the modern strats. Boss helped a lot. Flicker found some things too. And now the time is like under 9 minutes. Quite a bit time cut there. But yeah, like again, I used really primitive bad strats initially, so that's why it was 53 minutes long. The other thing is, it wasn't until around 2015 where pause buffering was quite common. Like the very first bunch of untides I got in PDLTK, it's not pause buffered. The only pause I did in my original attack ship DLTK was at the star map room to turn off music. That's all I did. Everything else was raw. All the early untides, both by me, Flicker, Boss, Deep Darkness, no pause buffering at all. It wasn't until Mauser played Pelagic 2 DLTK and he paused like 800 million times to get headshots and everything. I'm like, oh, well, I guess we should probably start doing this on every level.
I guess this is where the optimization comes from now. Better start doing it.
That's where a lot of time cut came. Mm-hmm.
And so you felt like that, like you felt kind of groany about it at the time, but how do you feel about pause buffering now?
I mean, it's an interesting mechanic. I mean, some people like it, some people don't like it, and I can understand both sides to it. I do sort of like the calculatory nature of pause buffering, like especially in LTK, like when you pause, you have to assess your environment and like look at the animations of all the guards and know how quickly you can fire your next shot and where you can move and these sorts of things. You have to sort of analyze everything and determine, okay, what's my next sort of move here? You almost turn it into like a turn-based game in certain ways. Now, of course, you can just play it safely and avoid all these conflicts and just use pause buffering as a tool to just slowly whittle your way through. But when you're speedrunning, you have to put yourself in dangerous situations and then just figure ways out around it. And pause buffering does help a lot with that. So I have mixed opinions on it. It's kind of neat in a way. It is kind of a cool mechanic, but it does look kind of ugly sometimes, and music videos don't go very well with them, unfortunately. So it is what it is.
Yeah, I like it. I like it far more as a player than I do as a viewer.
Fair enough. I think that's a common sentiment. Yeah.
So, um, I don't have a segue into what the next kind of thing to talk about.
Just throw a question. Go for it.
We've kind of talked about your early GoldenEye stuff, but we haven't talked about any kind of mid tier GoldenEye stuff or any of your GoldenEye LTK stuff. Is there any levels that you found particularly challenging GoldenEye LTK wise?
Train in the silo. Yeah, like as said, like I pushed GoldenEye LTK pretty hard. After Attack Ship, I had 6 more levels. I beat 4 of them. I tried Train for a while, couldn't beat it. Didn't revisit it for years later. GoldenEye LTK, same kind of thing. Like I found lots of strats and little optimizations, and I just pushed pretty much all my times around. And the same kind of thing. Like I have a very well-rounded playstyle. Like I don't have too many amazing times, but I have a very high point floor. I have the highest of everyone. There was one point where I had 90 plus on everything except for Archives LTK, which was 89, I think. So I'm pretty high up at the ranks just because of that, because I don't have too many bad times. But yeah, eventually I played some more GoldenEye LTK. Like, it's a bucket list. You got to beat them all, right? Especially after seeing players like Quirky and David Cliff beat everything. Like, I can do this, right? Lots of new strats came from Train DLTK as well. Quirky found a little trick with some of the guards. Like, many of the guards in the levels are constantly animating, where if you don't even have them loaded, they're still trying to do kneeling shots or charging shots or standing shots. And so what he figured out was while they're unloaded, if you run further back into the level, you can make them do a charging animation, and then they'll be closer to the door, and then you can see them animating into the door because they can't open them. So with that sort of visual cue, it was a lot easier to kill guards. And Quirky only did that for a few problematic areas in the level, and I kind of took it to the extreme. That's why my first completion is an hour and 17 minutes, because every sort of tricky guard, I did that little trick where I would pull them forward into the door and very slowly whittle them away. Initially, I tried to play more aggressively. I have a video on my YouTube channel titled 200 IQ Train DLTK Gameplay, because when I was starting to get impatient, I would just open the door instead of trying to get them into it. Because again, when they're doing charging animations, even while unloaded, it's kind of hard to direct their angle into the door. And so even when you go back, you can't see where they are. So eventually I'm just going to open the door, see where they are. And surprise, surprise, when you open the door, you get shot and you die. And there goes a 40 or 50-minute run. I'm like, okay, that really sucks. But no, I kept trying at it. And eventually I got to the point, like, I'm just going to be as patient as I can possibly be. I'm going to slap guards to death. I'm going to use the frozen guard glitch in the second car. I'm going to do Quirky's little trick. I'm going to do everything that I can to make it as consistent as possible. And that's why my time is like an hour and 17 minutes. So Train DLTK was quite challenging, but I did beat it without too much time invested overall. And most of the time invested was just because of the length of the run, really. And again, hashtag no nerves allowed. When I got to the last car, you know, when you're an hour and 17 minutes, an hour and 15 or so into a run, and then you have to laser the locks, shoot the 3 guards outside before Urmov kills Natalia, and then you have to go in there, blast his face, and then quickly kill the guards so you can get out of the way into the zone where Nat won't run out the train. For most people, that's probably a little scary, but I managed it fine. I completed my first completion was the first run I got to the that ending. So yeah, that was pretty cool. So yeah, I got Train done, and then I didn't touch Silo until just last year, actually, in April, I believe. Silo, as you can imagine, is quite difficult. You have the way I like to describe Silo is if there were no timer, it would be a pretty easy level. It would be kind of like Caverns DLTK, where there's a lot of guards, there's lots of shooting, you can blow things up. But the obvious issue is the timer. But because of the timer, enforcing you to use certain strats, the level then becomes sort of easy again in the way that like, okay, I have to do these strats, and then you just learn them, and they're not too bad. The main issue, it's really to the untrained eye, it's mostly a luck-based level, because among the first 4 crate guards, you need 3 grenades to be able to get through, or not 3, you need at least 2, and then you need, if you don't have 3, you need to get the last one in the crate hull.
Yep.
So yeah, it's mostly luck based. There's not actually too many difficult execution spots. The start is a little hard, but it's really not that bad. So I just had to grind for the luck. It took me 110 hours to beat. I did that across 2 weeks because I was playing it pretty much nonstop. It was, I was on break from school and not working at the time because the world was exploding. So I just played Silo DLTK pretty much nonstop. Yeah, I did come up with a few innovations, a couple tricks in some of the rooms. I broke a few myths. Some people were doing weird things, I guess because they saw Boson do it, and then the next person did, and like, oh, I guess everyone does that, I'll do this. But then I analyzed and like, oh, this is silly. There's no reason to do this. So I did a few of those things. The main contribution I did was an easier start, like the very first, like the first 3 guards. I would do a guard lure where I would shoot the first guard, and the 2 guards further up the stairs would see it. And the way guards work is if they see a guard shot, but they don't see you, they only run up to the point where you shot the bullet, and then they stop. They don't chase you after. So by doing that, I could kill the first 3 guards one by one, and it was about as fast as the initial strat. And later in the level, you're capped anyway, so because of like the cycles of the pathing guards. So it was a really good strat. It made the start so much easier, because what we would do before is we would lure all 3 of them, and then while you're trying to headshot the first guard 10 times, you would just sort of jam the other 2 in the door, and it's hard to get through that. And when I tried, I'm like, I don't like this. I'm going to find something better. And I did. So, but for the most part, my run is just a mishmash of other strats. Boson obviously did a lot of work with the initial completion. Boss came up with the 2 grenade strat, where instead of needing 3, you only need 2. But it's a lot slower. It's so much harder to execute. It's inconsistent. I didn't really like it. I tried it a bit. I tried to make it better. I don't think there's a way to do so. So I just went with the classic 3 grenade strat, changed a few things, and again, just a mishmash of other strats. And yeah, I just grinded it until I got the luck, and then I completed it. Yeah, nothing too much to say. Again, I mean, I'm not a robot. I do get slightly nervous, but I'm sure it's far less than most people. But it was a nice bucket list to complete, because at the point in my sort of GoldenEye career, well, even really elite career, so to speak, I knew beating Silo DLTK was probably going to be the last major achievement I ever do. The only other thing is maybe an Untied sweep still, but like I'm not going to be able to get top 5. There's no way. And basically any other goal is just sort of another drop in the bucket. Like I could get more Untieds in a bunch of different levels, but I've had so many, so it's not a big deal. But yeah, so Silo DLTK was really cool for that. Over the next while, and even more recently, earlier this year, I pushed my GoldenEye rankings a little bit. I'm currently second, I think 4 points over Boson, but he's bleeding points like crazy on S2, so it's not exactly legit. And Boss as well hasn't played in a long time. He's within reach, I think like 29 points. And again, that doesn't sound like a whole lot, but when most of your times are like way up there, 29 points is a ton. The best way to do that, sorry, go ahead.
It's a fair bit of work, yeah.
It is, yeah. So the best way I would be able to pass Boss would be to like Untied flip him, but funny enough, he actually doesn't have that many Untieds, and not too many that I could really get anyway. So I made an Excel sheet. I tried to plan out how I could get so many points, and it would be a ton of work. It would be kind of cool because I've never had a GLTK champ, but no, I just don't want to invest the time. It's too much work for too little reward. I'll get it. I'll be like, woo, and then Boson will play S2, and then I'll get buried. So I don't really care. I'm content with second, even third. Same thing with PDLTK. I pushed that recently to catch up to Boss and Flicker. I'm not going to be able to catch Pollywood unless I go ham, but again, I don't want to invest the time, so I'm content with where I am. I had PDLTK champ for a while. It was pretty fun. It's a lot of investment in time for, being the best at a side league in a random speed game. I'm going to quickly devolve into Goose's speedrunning rant, but,
Yep.
Being the best in the world at this thing that 4 people do is, it's neat in a way, but it's also opportunity cost of doing other things. So yeah, anyway. Yeah, go ahead.
So I think it's pretty interesting that there's only 4 people that have ever got that full LTK sweep across both games, like even just for completions. Like that's impressive on its own, right?
Yeah, that's correct. Boson had there's 5 for Silo, but Boson hasn't played much of a PDLTK. He's a GoldenEye player. The next obvious one would be Flicker, of course. He just needs Silo, and I'm sure he could do it. Looking at the rankings, Dildonius destroyed PDLTK. What's that?
Is Deep Darkness far off a full sweep completion?
He needs Train and Silo, right, which is quite a bit of a challenge. I think he could do it, perhaps, but that's a lot of work as well. Yeah, Flicker could do it, and I think there will be more people who beat all the levels in one of the games, but probably only Flicker and maybe Deep Darkness across both. Like looking at GoldenEye LTK right now, Flicker needs Silo, Palmer needs Silo, he's long gone. Wouter needs Train and Silo, he's not going to play those. Deep Darkness might. And then the 2 newer, 3, I guess, newer guys to GLTK. Raging Clownfish has shown a lot of potential. He's rocketed up in completions. Same with Sean John. And Therm, one of my league picks, he's only missing 6, so he's not too far off. I think he could probably do most of them as well. And then who do we have in the PDLTK? Axel needs attack ship. He might be able to do that. Sam Fisher only needs 5, not too bad. Perna only needs 9, maybe if he's bored, but I don't think we're going to see anything too dramatic in the LTK world anytime soon. Maybe Boson will come and play S2, and also Bunker 1 LTK, or no, Bunker 2 LTK. His time is pretty bad there too. He might rock it up, but that's true as well. Like Tolos, Ben Burns, and the other guy, Tom Russell, they're coming there along the way. Both interesting players. They're doing things in interesting ways, but maybe we'll see more from them.
The Ben Burns proof standard is good enough, going to be good enough for the next 100 years, I think.
Absolutely, yeah. We're doing it with 2.x, which, it's funny because with 2.x you can't R-lean, which means you can't do quick leans, like when you sort of peek out.
Oh, yeah, pop around corners, yeah, right.
Mm-hmm. And he did, his statue DLTK run, he did the world record YOLO leave on a first completion, which was an interesting decision, but nonetheless, he got his completion, so all the power to him. But so anyway, going back to your question regarding GoldenEye, so that's pretty much everything I have about LTK. Actually, I guess I could mention the Untides as well. Like I've had really good rankings. I've only had a couple Tide World records, but that Cradle DLTK was my first Untide, and then recently I got Egypt DLTK. I tried Caverns LTK. I got tired of the level before I could get an Untide, but it's not that strong. It's 303. I could beat it, but it sucks. Anyway, so GoldenEye regular mode. It's really, I've played most of the levels. I have decent times on most of the levels, but nothing too amazing. Anything that I have good is mostly a fluke, like the Frigate 102, where that was my first 102 pace that completed. That's pretty silly.
That's even better than Dinah's 23.
That's debatable. But yeah,
in terms
it was
of
really
luck,
cool when I got it.
Because Dinah failed at 2 23s and got a complete, and you failed 0.
I didn't fail any 102s. My best fail is a 103, and I have 102. So that's really cool. Streets 112 was kind of cool. The time itself now is kind of weaker, but I skipped 113. A little less cool than the way. Yeah, not as cool as the way Lockwood did it, but still kind of funny. And then most of the rest of my page is complete garbage. I haven't pushed it too much. I have modest times. Like I think my GoldenEye normal rankings peak was 28th. I got up there.
Yep.
I've dropped a fair bit now, but yeah, nothing too much. And then in Perfect Dark, Perfect Dark, it was definitely more my specialty game. And I did get top 10, even ninth place a little while back, although that's long gone now. Basically, yeah, so as I mentioned, when I learned full speed, I rocketed up the rankings. I went from like 50th to 25th or something like that in the span of 3 weeks. I pushed a little bit more to 20th. And then over the course of a few months, I pushed little by little up to, I think it was 13th place. And then from that point was a gigantic mountain in front of me. I made a little image of it. I'm sure it's around on the forum somewhere. Of basically, I have this picture of like some like hiker with a giant mountain in front of him, like some artist rendition of, I don't know, just a mountain. And basically, I pasted all the players above me and their point totals at the top. So it's like Boss, Ace, Cedric, Taka, and then the other guys. And so basically, the point of it is that while I was in, I think, 13th place, 12th place was YE with 5,500-ish points, and I had about 5,000. So there was like a 500-point gap to YE. Yeah. So naturally, I wasn't too keen to do that because the thing is, if you're going to push for that, you don't want to stop halfway because then you're like, in terms of the rankings, it was all for naught. So I wasn't too motivated to do it. I played a little bit more just so I wouldn't point and bleed and fall below, like lose any more rankings. Like Vitor wasn't too far below me. And then just little by little, I chipped away at it. I got, I think, a couple hundred points in there, and it was still like a 250, 300-point gap. And eventually in early, I think it was 2018, yeah, the competition was starting to heat up a little bit in Perfect Dark. Like for a long time, it was a dead game. There wasn't too many people playing. And I knew I could definitely catch up to YE, Chuya, and Red Bull to nab 10th place. But, it's a big time investment. So I made a big Excel spreadsheet. And from the data I've had from before, just analyzing trends, looking at what points or like what times are losing point values and that sort of thing. And I made a giant plan like, okay, this is how I'm going to get to 10th. And basically for a month and a half, I was working full time at the time. And all of my free time went into grinding Perfect Dark normal mode.
Yep.
And playing a lot of levels I didn't like. Having quite a bit of struggles on certain levels and, just all that sort of stuff as any grind would go. And it was, again, like it's not stressful in the same way of like being nervous or like being scared that you might lose a good run, but stressful in that like I don't really have any sort of break. I'm just grinding this. I go to sleep, I go to work, I do a full shift, I come home, I grind Perfect Dark. And I did that for a month and a half to get it done because I knew, like, again, I didn't have much time left. And once I passed Red Bull for 10th, which was really cool, like, hey, I'm top 10 now. I decided I'm going to push a little bit more. I'm going to pass Otto for 9th because I knew Jez was very, very good. He was ranked quite a bit below me, but he has NAs and he has lots of bad times, but he's a very, very skilled player. So I passed Otto to 9th, so I would have that buffer ranking. So when Jez would eventually get top 10, I could stay in top 10, at least for a little while. And funny enough, that never happened. He got busy with school and other things. And that buffer ranking only, prevented the inevitable once everyone else came up. Like, who all passed me? Like, there's Dr. Light, Lake Demon, BK, Zella, Ricky, Polly. Just a giant sort of a renaissance of
Big
Perfect Dark, and I got buried pretty fast. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I'm all the way down in 16th now, and I'm not going to be able to get top 10 again. Probably not, unless everyone stops playing and I decide to do a mega grind on everything. But so that ship has sailed. But it was cool. Like, I did get top 10. I had 9th as well. I held that for a little while. And that's probably the peak of as far as I'm going to get with the rankings. The thing with grinding today, like, my initial plans for this summer was to clean up my times on all 4 of my rankings. But it's hard to stay motivated because the thing is, grinding like Perfect Dark normal mode now, I'm putting in so much effort to achieve a ranking worse than I've had before. You know, like we were talking earlier about how much points certain times were valued at, even just a few years ago, but especially, you know, quite a few years ago. Um, you know, I'm grinding for times that are worth less points than my previous PR.
Yep.
So it's hard to stay. It's hard to create a goal really to like work towards. Like I could improve times, but you know, who cares, right? I've tried to make all sorts of different things. Yeah, okay, yeah. I know Randy passed me later, but that was far after I became a rel, so that doesn't really count. But yeah, so you know, I've tried to create all sorts of things like time rank goals or like sweeping people, which kind of has a bit of a negative like connotation. So you know, I try not to push too much of that, but you know, it does create objective goals to work for, like trying to sweep out like mid-tier players relative to you.
Yep.
Um, but as I said, like I feel like I've done most of everything that I want to do with the games, and most of what I could work towards now is going to be worse than what I've had before. So it's kind of hard to stay motivated for that. So despite wanting to play a lot more at the beginning of the summer, I grinded quite a few levels: rescue, G5, infiltration, a little bit of GoldenEye, but I got burnt out pretty quick. And yeah, that's kind of so, yeah. Go ahead.
Keep going. Sorry.
Okay, sure. I mean, like I burnt out pretty quick. Like it's hard for me to like decide what to do next because, you know, like as I keep repeating, like I can't really do something that I haven't already done before, and likely that I've done better before than I would do now. Um, so yeah, I've just been doing other games like you know, Ocarina of Time randomizers, and been playing Mario Maker lately a bunch, and doing little task projects and these sorts of things. So probably gonna pick away at some fun levels, but you know, some of my favorites, maybe Snatch and Untied or two in LTK, but no big plans for me, unfortunately.
Yeah, going forward
So yeah,
before we
that's where I
come back,
stand
like
on the
what's
rankings.
the future for you there? Just playing stuff that you like in terms of GoldenEye Perfect Dark is just playing stuff that you enjoy rather than pushing for external ranking kind of goals.
Yeah, possibly. I mean, like pretty much the entire like 7 years I've been playing GoldenEye Perfect Dark, I've always been, as I've said, a well-rounded player. There's not too many times I've grinded really hard for certain times. There's been a couple levels I have done that. Like obviously, I've had to do big grinds for Attack Ship DLTK. I would say that was pretty ahead of my time as a player. And then you know, doing mega grinds for Silo and Train to get those done. For normal mode, I haven't done too many levels. Investigation Agent is one that I really liked. I love laser skips; they're so cool. But I really don't like the zoom strat, so I've been sitting comfy on 105 for quite a while, hoping that someone will figure something out and you know get rid of the zoom strat that sucks. You know, Ilu getting 102 with you know the sort of older strat is pretty cool. That's kind of motivating. Like
Are you
maybe I'll
more
do
interested
that.
in that than you are with the Zoom JD style strat?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's a couple other levels. Like I do like AFOPA, despite most people hating it. I wouldn't mind pushing for 125. I don't know if 124 is on the cards, but I wouldn't mind 125. That could be a fun grind. What else do we have? GoldenEye. I don't know. Lots of the harder levels. I do like Double O and PA levels for the most part. I generally like levels that have more complexity and more like interaction with the level rather than just running through basic lines. Like Facility is honestly not that exciting for me. I'd rather play something like Train or Control. Way cooler. Silo's kind of fun as well. Um, I think the main sort of goal I guess I have with the rankings is not really a proactive goal, but more of like a maintenance goal. Is I want to make sure I don't have any 0 pointers, which isn't too
Okay.
hard to you know maintain, but there's a few things in GoldenEye that are kind of hard to do. Like 151s on S1 are kind of on their way out. And Facility 46 is losing points, which is a tough world we live in. So I might have to get 45 eventually. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. Yeah, I will say this to anyone who's newish to the games or who have been trying to expand. The biggest mistake in general, not just even within GoldenEye and Perfect Dark, but in lots of speed gaming for myself, is spreading myself thin. By playing all four rankings in GoldenEye, Perfect Dark, and LTK and normal, I have 200 ILs to keep up with. that's a lot. As opposed to, you know, being a strictly normal mode GoldenEye player, you have 60, which is, you know, less than a third. But even just beyond that, I've done a little bit of Mario Kart. I've done lots of casual gaming goals. You know, I have lots of tasks, projects I've done. Like, I need someone to figure out immortality, so I have enough time to do everything that I want to do. Because it's hard to, you know, pick and choose. You know,
You need more
something
of a
has to
time
give.
chamber than immortality, because if you're immortal, then these things are going to keep going, and new strats will come out and all that kind of stuff. You
Yeah,
need a
well,
time
you
chamber
know,
to be able to.
there's a finiteness to speed running. So eventually, when all levels are solved and I have infinite time to grind for everything, then, you know, we'll be okay.
To push them
But
all to their theoretical
in
limits.
this mortal state of, sorry.
To push them all to their theoretical limits.
Yeah, but unfortunately, in my mortal state, I have to make decisions time wise. So, you
Next, you're
know,
going to
it
tell me
is
that you've
what
got
it
to pay
is.
bills as well.
Yeah, yeah. There's, you know, it wouldn't hurt to win the lottery. That would certainly open up some free time, but that's not the world we live in. So, yeah.
You've also done some interesting stuff that's not strictly rankings. So I'm thinking about things like the GoldenEye 001 timer on Statue, for example.
Oh yes, yes, yeah, yeah. I mean, having studied the game so much, I found lots of little interesting things. Some are just kind of fun facts. Some are kind of, you know, glitchy things you wouldn't normally see. Yeah, that statue 1 second timer. Yeah, that's Ant Venom, that Minecraft player, used to play a little bit of GoldenEye, and he found uh, he was messing around on Damn Agent with cheats, and he was shooting himself with the tank while the cutscene was going. And because he's boosting himself so much while standing in place, he's building up that speed so much, and then he just rockets off into the tunnel. And he called it, you know, the true way to get Dam 52. And we were kind of looking at that, me and Carl Jobst, and we were like thinking, like, can we do something with this? Is this a potential strat? And we couldn't really figure anything out. But then we were like thinking about certain runs. You know what? I think Lockwood's B117 or yeah, Lockwood's was kind of weird. Like, he paused at the glass for the key analyzer. He gets shot just as the pause comes in, and he gets shot immediately after, and he's basically at the stairs. You know, we discovered super boosting, and so I was messing around with it, you know, trying all sorts of funny things, and on statue with using cheats, blowing myself up with the tank, and having fast animation for guards to shoot me some more. I was getting super boosted, and I just, you know, flew out the gate, and hey, I exited a level in 1 second that had never been done before. That's pretty cool. So yeah, I mean, on the journey trying to break levels, even not even just from like 2014, 2015 at my sort of prime time doing so. I've spent a lot of time over the years just studying the games, because it's not even necessarily for the purpose of like breaking levels, but it is also just kind of a fun hobby, trying to absorb as much knowledge as possible and learning about the games as much as possible. So naturally, I figured out all sorts of quirks and silly things. The function explorer is really cool for that. Like, I've the defection PA glitch where the programmer, his sort of passing fails in the lift, and he automatically triggers the console. I figured that out from the function explorer. So, and you know, just exploring all sorts of weird quirks and stuff like that. You know, I have all sorts of stupid knowledge about both the games. A lot of it is useless. Some of it is kind of helpful for speedruns. And yeah, that 1 second timer is just a good example of that. Yeah.
The Function Explorer looks like an interesting kind of tool. I know that you worked out the Surface 2 nade spawning guard based on that too.
Yeah. Yeah, I looked at the Function Explorer, and it has it borrows code from Surface 1, where Surface 1 has this weird quirk where when it checks for spawning guards, depending on what weapon you're having, there's a like an RNG call if it won't spawn or not. So if you have like some of the stronger weapons like KF7 or grenade launcher, spawns, I believe it's more likely. Whereas if you have like PP7 or you're unarmed, there's a chance that they won't spawn or they'll despawn or something. And for whatever reason, that code is borrowed into S2. And unlike S1, we start with a weapon that isn't in that list with the remote mine. So I thought, hey, if we have a remote mine, we guarantee the spawns. And so we can consistently have them appear in the same spots every time. And then we worked a little bit with the timing and like where to look. So now we don't need to watch cutscene in S2 anymore. So if you're unfamiliar with older runs, not only did you have to wait for a need on Surface 2, but you also had to watch the cutscenes, like part of it anyway. And yeah, we fixed that problem, so that's nice. And yeah, like that came entirely from the Function Explorer, so that's really cool. And I found lots of other little quirks, like a more recent one I found was on Villa. There's a sort of spot near the end of the cave where as soon as you run through it, all the guards in the inside the buildings appear. But if you can create enough lag and you warp through that little section, none of the guards inside appear. And what's best is the guard who opens the door for the Villa Agent and essay clip isn't one of those guards who's checked. He still appears. So you can basically greatly reduce lag by getting rid of all the guards. Unfortunately, it turns out that the setup for it takes longer than it's worth. But just, again, like exploring the Function Explorer and looking into the logic and code of the game has opened up a lot of things. I have some programming skills. I initially was a computer science major, although I didn't finish that. But I'm certainly not as talented as YE or Whitehead. But I can still like I can perfectly read everything in the Function Explorer. And before that came around, like again, I would just casually play the game, run around with cheats on, just throw on invincibility, throw on all guns, play around the games, think up crazy ideas, and see what I could come up with. And probably over the years, I've literally probably have like 2,000 hours just messing around with the games, figuring stuff out, useful or useless. Actually, one sort of interesting story back in my sort of rise in Perfect Dark LTK, because that is so complicated and so underplayed. There was so much to sort of like optimize and strategize. There'd be times where I would just be like laying in bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about the game. And there was one particular sort of moment of doing that. Like I was just staring at the ceiling, thinking of like Extraction DLTK. Boss had a decent time on it, but it felt like really slow. Like because of the way the guards are laid out, you have to do it very safely. So I was just sort of thinking like a crazy idea, like how can I make this faster? What can I do to open up a new Untied, or at the very least, like a decent time? And I came up with the idea, like, what if I do the agent trick where I open the door from the backside, I clear out the second floor, I go back down to the third floor, and then clear out that floor. And as I arrive back, like after clearing out the third floor, and ready to go to the top, Dr. Carroll in the lift arrives just at the right time, such that you can reopen the door from the back side and then go up to the top. And so yeah, like that was just an idea. I was just again laying in bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about the game, and I came up with that idea. And it's kind of hard to go to sleep when you have like such a something in the palm of your hand right there. So initially, I just like right away, I like turned on my console. I tried it out. It turned out to be faster. I'm like, okay, I have to grind this now. And fortunately, I was very lucky that one of my first runs to the top, I was able to complete because it is quite difficult with the Cassandra bodyguards. But basically, like 40 seconds, I went from idea to Untied. I beat boss by 1 second. Later on, the level got broken a few more times, but that was a really cool moment. Just like, again, thinking about the game, trying to piece ideas together and, inventing strats. And sometimes it leads to an Untied. Sometimes it just leads to a fun fact. But it's all fun and the game's all the same.
When you're getting started with that, you've got your pretty epic theoretical and underutilized strats compendium post. That sort of information didn't exist for you, I'm guessing, when you were starting out. So where did you go to find all this kind of stuff out? Were you watching old videos? Were you searching through the forums? Were you playing with a game? Like, where did you pull all this kind of stuff from?
Yeah, a lot of it. I mean, not all of it is mine, of course. A lot of it is just from like basically what you said, like videos, forum posts, all these sorts of things. Ideas that people have come up with over the years, and sometimes get re-asked. Like, every once in a while, someone will ask, "Hey, on facility at the end, why don't we just use one remote mine and take a fourth boost instead?" And then I have that as like a hypothetical in there, and like it could work. Just got to sort of figure it out. No one's really been able to do it. Or like I have a lot of misconceptions in there because again, like especially from a casual audience, they'll always ask the same kind of things. Like, is there a skip on control? Answer is no, probably. And so I just wanted to have like a compendium of all this knowledge in one place rather than just scattered all over the place between videos and posts on the forums, or conversations on Twitch, or thoughts in people's brains. Like I just wanted to get it all in one place. And yeah, I mean, nothing too much more into that, but that's how I put it all together. And I think WhiteTed has taken some of those ideas and like turned them into proper strats. Another good example is like the all left strafe idea on jungle with 2.x. I had that, or is it right strafe? I don't know, one of the strafe sites. I had that as an idea to play 2.x on jungle, and it just sort of sat there for a while. And then later on, it became kind of the standard way to play. Like all the world records use 2.x now. I think maybe one of Clemens doesn't, but so sometimes random
I think
things
Clem's
from
run
that
even
turn
does. I
out to
think
be
he's using Toe.x.
I think that's right. I think SA00 he might have used 1.2, and then Agent he did that. But yeah, in any case, 2.x is heavily used for jungle now, so that's kind of cool. But yeah, just like on the topic of like searching for strategies, like not only do you have to have like really good sort of like logical and reasoning skills, but you also have to know when to stop at a bad idea, because you can use your imagination and come up with all sorts of things. In your mind, there's infinite possibilities, but in reality, only a finite amount of them actually exist. So one of the main things a lot of, again, casual people like to bring up is there a way to break control? And while it is the longest level in GoldenEye, a lot of it is essentially auto scroll. Like there's maybe like 40 to 50 seconds of like meaningful gameplay where you can lose time. The rest is just, you're waiting for Nat, and then you run over there, and then you're waiting for Nat, and then you're waiting for her to leave, or you're waiting for guards to die. There's not a whole lot you can do to speed things up. And I mean, like if you look in the function explorer, it straight up says like when you get Nat to the console, you have to wait what is it, like a minute 45 for it to end, and the time check goes in sync with the game timer itself that is used to evaluate your speed run. So if you were to find a way to break that, it does sort of add a philosophical element, because you are directly affecting the way in which we measure speed runs. So probably there's never going to be a major breaking, like a way to break control. And the other thing is, if you were to in fact break control by like breaking these timers with NPCs, you're not just breaking control. You're going to break facility with Trev. You're going to break statue with Valentine and Mishkin. You're going to break archives with Mishkin. You're going to break train with Natalia. You're going to break Valentine on streets. Like if you were to break control, like it's not just a control specific thing. It's going to be like the whole game.
Game breaking.
So
glitch. Yep.
Yeah, and I mean, again, you can think of all sorts of crazy ideas, but that doesn't mean they're going to be real. And if you keep chasing an idea that doesn't seem to have any chance of panning out, you're just going to waste time. So you have to know when to move on from strategies. And sometimes you come back to things and it turns out, hey, I was wrong the first time. This is an actual thing. That's how I did MBR actually. And but like WhiteTed does a lot of that. Like he comes up with all sorts of crazy ideas, and sometimes they're just they start off as hypotheticals, and then they become, hey, maybe this is the right way to play the game. And then eventually, hey, this is the standard way to play the level. So there's a lot of difficulty in strategizing beyond just the finding strategies. A lot of it is also on your ability to know what to look for, how to look for things, and when to stop and move on to something else. The other thing with I lost my train of thought. What was I going to say?
You've been talking about knowing when to
I
stop,
can't remember.
strategizing and overanalyzing problems and stuff
Yeah,
like that.
Yeah, I forgot. Okay, well, maybe I'll think of it later. Anyway.
Is that a problem solving skill set that you have been able to use outside of gaming context as well?
Well, I mean, like, so a little bit about my personal life. I've rotated majors quite a few times. When I first went to university, I started as computer science, and I switched to math, and I switched to stats, and eventually I just dropped out without finishing with a degree. Like I dropped out with like 3.5 years of school, which is probably not a very good life choice for anyone younger
Look,
in the chat or listening later.
I'm in a minority here, but literally dropping out of uni 2.5 years effectively into a 3-year degree is the best career decision I ever made for me. Now that's unique to my
It's
situation.
funny how that works out sometimes. Yeah,
I mean,
like I'm back in school now, and yeah, like I've been back in school now for a few years. I'm going to my last year for I'm majoring in accounting of all things, which has been very good. Basically, like all my life, I've always had very strong sort of like logical reasoning skills. I kind of like I am a strong believer in like multiple intelligences. Sort of the stereotypical sort of quote unquote smart is like the mathematical, like physics and computer science type of side. And I've always been good with that, but I'm not very like artistic or musical or what have you. But anyway, basically all my life I've always been really interested in like math and that sort of logical thinking and strategizing, that sort of thing. And I've applied a lot of that into games. I've applied a lot of that into real life, and it does sort of have a sort of back and forth. Like a good example again with the tax ship. Like I like never get nervous from anything anymore. That's not just within games. Like after doing that on a tax ship deal to get like everything else, like you feel like the physiological response never goes away. You still feel your heart beating. You feel like you can feel it in your veins heating up, but you learn how to just deal with it, and that has a lot of real life uses as well, like say like job interviews or like taking tests or dating or again really any sort of thing where you have something on the line and you have to perform or you're going to fail. But also like the sort of philosophical side and the very meta side of studying GoldenEye Perfect Dark has been very helpful in sort of expanding my like introspection and like self-reflection. Like I said, I used to do giant data posts every month in 2015 and 2016. And along with just the data, I would also write sort of like little articles about interesting happenings and sort of like the meta of like grinding these games, things like purpose, like what are we doing them for? Or like if I'm a new player, what should my goals be? Not just like in terms of like getting good times or like passing people, but like why are you playing this game? Out of all the different things that you could be dedicating your time to, you're speedrunning some old video game. You have to have a good reason to doing so, or else you're just kind of wasting your time, or perhaps for some people, just sort of falling into escapism or addiction and just doing it, progress for the sake of progress. I think it's good to be very reflective on the things that you're doing. And grinding through GoldenEye Perfect Dark has sort of fired that off in me. Like I've been thinking about things in a grander perspective, and I apply that in real life as well. Sort of around that same era, again in my personal life, I was working night shifts, just doing that like grocery stocking, and my commute was like a 40-minute walk one way and then 40 minutes back, and then while at work. Most of my coworkers didn't speak a whole lot of English, so it was mostly like we were all friendly and got along. But I was mostly just by myself, not really talking to anyone or doing anything like that. But so I had like pretty much like 12 hours a day, just like thinking about everything, whether it's like games or personal life or big philosophical questions that everyone comes along at some point in their lives. And I think like again, like applying that so much in GoldenEye and Perfect Dark um, made me think of like, okay, so thinking of games in a grander perspective, I should be thinking about my real life in a grander perspective as well. So certainly playing the games, both from a logical perspective and a philosophical perspective, has been very beneficial, and I do that all the time now. It's I think it's very healthy. I think most people, if not everyone, should do that.
You might have been the only person I've ever heard to positively correlate speedrunning with dating. Being able to use your clutchness skills to in order
Well,
for it
I
to
mean,
help with dating.
yeah, like before I got into speedrunning, one of my main like I've done so many competitive games. I could go over so many. Maybe I will in a bit. One of the main things I did was Smash Bros. And in like in a tournament environment, when you're in person and people are screaming and you're on the last game, you're both on the last lives, or stocks as they're called in the game. And I would I choked so many good sets where I had the game in the bag and I just threw it away because I would get nervous. And just like it's kind of hard to get over that. But again, like attacks of DLTK helps so much with that. So again, like real life perspectives, applying that to, again, dating or like interviews or writing tests or like any other sort of competition or performance or stuff. Like you get used to having something on the line and dealing with it, not even necessarily succeeding, but being able to play at 100% without fumbling and, embarrassing yourself and losing
Yeah,
what you're going
I
for.
completely understand the logic that you're using to get there. Yeah.
Yeah. There's if you watch enough Twitch streams, there's a lot of people who are on a really hot run and they just completely blow it. We almost saw that last night with Clemens. He was a little overconfident going into the vents, and he took a bit of a nasty face shot with that laser.
He was
Fortunately,
lucky
he
he
didn't
had enough
die. It would
health
have
to
been
survive a hit in the
yeah,
vents.
it was extremely fortunate. But yeah, Clemens is usually very good at clutching things. I think he was just overconfident. But there are a lot of players who I've seen be on a really hot pace and then choke things. And it's just one part of the game you have to get better at, the whole mental aspect.
Yeah, I find I say this every time I hear about Clemens. Like, he's such a fascinating contradiction of a guy. Because, like, number one, yeah,
Absolutely.
he's super clutch to be able to do stuff like that, or like his FAC 43. He calls that as he's going down the stairs. Oh, I just got FAC 43. He's still got however many seconds of the level to go out, but he
like
knows he's
half the
on
run to
pace.
still go.
Like, it sounds super cocky, but then on the flip side of that, like he'll turn off his recordings for like Rescue USA because he's too worried about being able to have the nerves to be able to clutch the run, right? Like, it's just this fascinating contradiction.
Very interesting strat, yeah. He did that famously on Surface 100-148, which after like 10 years later, he finally duped. So,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. So I just find him a fascinating contradiction just in that style.
Yeah, I think it's the difference in like being consciously aware of like all the details of the game and like subconsciously knowing things. I think Mark is another good example like that. Like if you ask him anything like technical about the game, he doesn't know anything what's going on, but he has a very strong intuitive sense of like how to go quickly, how to save little time bits here and there, how to like move in an efficient way. We used to like call it like Mark's magical tense. He would find, just little ways he's so much faster than everyone else. And again, like him and Clemens don't have that technical depth of the game, but they've just played it for so long. And again, it's like their brain is on a different wavelength than everyone else. They understand the game so deeply, but they don't necessarily know how to express it. I think a good way to improve, especially for newer players, is to like take your subconscious sort of understanding and knowledge, try to think about it as best you can, and sort of like make it become conscious. So then, if there's any little mistakes or errors within it, you can find ways to improve. Like, for example, if you're like a newer player and you're like playing, I don't know, like say Archives Agent or something like that, and they might have like an intuitive sense of like how to move around the level. almost like a bad habit sometimes, but maybe they're losing time here and there because they're not like consciously like thinking about what they're doing. But some people also just like, again, like subconsciously they just understand the game, and you see this a lot in not just other games but sports and real life too. Like some people just it's almost like third world, like otherworldly type of thing. But neurological science is kind of interesting. For the people who are familiar with Smash Bros, I think Mango is another player who is very much like that. Like he doesn't know anything about like frame data or like the technical stuff, but he has a very, very strong subconscious idea of how to play the game and like how to like adapt and find little ways to beat his opponents without necessarily knowing the raw coding mathematics of the game. It's a really fascinating sort of like concept and topic. But I'm definitely on the knowledge side. I mean, for the average gamer, I'm good, I guess. But like, I've always been the runt of the litter in terms of skill. I have to work really hard at that. But my knowledge and my mental game is quite strong. And that helps a lot in GoldenEye and Perfect Dark.
So Smash is obviously something you got a fair bit of interest in, and it sounds like you played a bit as well. That's
Yeah, yeah.
that and kind of other
Sure,
competitive
yeah.
gamings that you
Sure, I'll
talked
go
about.
into that. Yeah, like as I said, like GoldenEye and Perfect Dark, even just within speedrunning, are not my only games. I've done so many different games over the years. Like, uh, I've been playing games since I was 2 years old, and even as a young kid, I was just always fascinated with it. And again, like uh, in terms of like multiple intelligences, I've always been very strong in like the mathematical logical side. So I was playing DOS games by myself at like 3 years old, playing like Doom and sort of a lot of games that are a little bit more kid friendly, of course. But I've just been playing games all my life, and even as a kid, I was always fascinated with data and like trying to optimize things. Um, One thing I did a lot with Pokemon, the original Red, Blue, and Yellow. I used to have a big binder as like I was 10 years old. I had a big binder and I would just write down all sorts of stats and ideas and stuff. Like I would there's a lot of like numerical values that you never see playing the game. You have to sort of figure them out. Like Pokemon Stadium sort of shows a little bit of them, like the accuracy and the base powers and stuff. And I would just be so interested in these things. So I would just have like binders full of written notes and data and all these sorts of things. And like even as a young kid, I was so far ahead of the curve in terms of gaming. Like my friends played games, but they weren't as passionate for it as well. Um, so naturally, like I mentioned earlier, I was always sort of the gamer of my friend groups, and to draw on that on like a larger scale, the whole big fish, small pond as a concept was a lot more common before the internet sort of took over. Um, when I was really good at Pokemon at such a young age, and partially just being a kid, it's reasonable to think like, well, I can beat all my friends. None of them can touch me. I can beat the games like they're nothing, and I have so much knowledge of the game. I must be the best, right? Because in your sort of childlike mind, and not having a grand perspective on like a global scale, you do generally feel like that. And I think it's also part of the lore of the games. Like they sort of build you up like you're the Pokemon master in the game type of thing, and then sort of extending that into real life. Um, so yeah, so going on to Smash Bros. Really cool game for Melee. Like I played a lot of the 64. I played Melee when it first came out. I got it myself in 2002, and I've been playing pretty much Sheik and Jigglypuff for like 20 plus, well, not 20 years, but pretty close to 20 years. And I used to be really interested in them because it was a really far ahead of its time, Melee. Lots and lots and lots of depth, lots of cool mechanics and techniques and stuff. People are still discovering all sorts of new stuff today just because of the insane depth to it. And, it's also kind of a cool game from like a kid. Like, you get to play your favorite characters and you beat each other up on all these cool levels and stuff. And just like every other game, like I was ahead of the curve amongst my friends because, again, I had that passion and gaming has always been my main hobby. So I figured, oh, I must be the best ever. And eventually, I stumbled upon things like Smash boards and actual tournaments, and I would get into that. Um, I was aware of the competitive scene, I think, first in 2006, but I didn't actually go to my first tournament until like 2009, partially because I was just a young kid, partially because I lived in the middle of nowhere where no one else played at a competitive level. And going to my first tournament in 2009, I was living in Lethbridge, Alberta at the time, and I was taking I took a Greyhound up to Calgary to meet people I had only known online to, play video games for all weekend. And again, like I was going to my first tournament, and just like everything before, I figured, well, I must be the best ever, right? And I actually did decent for my first tournament, but certainly was not the best ever, as most people find a very common sentiment in Smash Bros. Because again, like before internet was as big as it is now, or even like social media and all that type of stuff, big fish in small pond was a very real concept. It's kind of dead these days, but yeah. So after I got whopped in Smash Bros, eventually I got more into it. I was humbled, and I wanted to get better, and that was my main competitive video game from about 2009 to 2013, and then I just stopped. I got busy with other things, didn't play too much. I picked up other things as well. But again, like I've played so many competitive games. I used to play Pokemon Red, Blue, Yellow. I played that competitively for quite a few years, like 5 or 6. I have written hundreds and hundreds of pages of information about that, and
Who's on your
my
Pokemon
biggest
team
contribution
in that kind of thing as a complete somebody who's really got no idea from the outside?
Sure. My general go-to team for Red, Blue, Yellow, anyway, I would play Jinx, Executor, Alakazam, Chansey, Snorlax, Tauros. Pretty standard stuff, nothing too crazy out of the box. So like Pokemon was another game I was really competitive into. Like I said, I've written hundreds of pages. I used to run my own community for it. It kind of died out after a while, just because like RBY is like the original Pokemon generation, so even at its prime, it wasn't super active, and I kind of moved on from the games as well, so the community kind of slowed down eventually. It's still played in other places, but anyway, just to sort of like explain the sort of levels that I dedicate to these games. And my biggest contributions to a Pokemon, like again, I was strategizing, I was optimizing, trying to think of ways how to get better at the game. And one of the big things that I innovated that wasn't as popular at the time was really crunching out the mathematics of the game, because people would have a general idea of like, okay, this attack against this Pokemon will do maybe like say a third or a fourth, or it'll KO in this many hits, and if you're in this situation, this is what you do, so on and so forth. But I broke things down a lot more into calculations, like here is the exact probability in like a 1v1 if this Pokemon is using this move, this Pokemon is using this move, and just like going as far into depth as I could until you get to the like mathematical limitations of like, okay, I have explored everything probability wise with this. There's nothing else there to explore. So I would push that in all sorts of different situations, which was sort of a new thing at the time. Not too many people did that. And I tried to sort of push this sort of perspective of making decisions as well, because in a general battle, at least for Red, Blue, Yellow, you have 6 Pokemon, each of them have 4 moves, right? And you always have 1 Pokemon out. So on any given turn, you have 4 moves, and a lot of talking.
Do you need us to stay hydrated, bot?
I might need to get Nightbot to remind us. Yeah, okay. I'll take a water break after this little rant here.
All right.
My sort of perspective I tried to push was, so you have 1 Pokemon out. You on any given turn, you have 4 moves you can pick from. That's the moves your Pokemon have. Or you can switch to 1 of 5 of your Pokemon. So on any given turn, you have 9 different choices. And on any given turn, your opponent has 9 given choices. So in total, from the decision-making perspective, there are 81 possibilities. Now, within each one, like a lot of it is like each player switching. And obviously, if you're switching the whole battle, you're not making any progress in KOing your opponents. So the bulk of it is always going to be the attacks, but you want to like look into all the possibilities within the attacks and know the probabilities of them all. Like for any given attack, there's a damage range. You can get critical hits. You can have secondary effects. You can have all these other things. And then when you're considering the opponent doing all these things, there's like a huge amount of possibilities on any given turn. You know, it's a very luck-based game. But when you break it down to only 81 potential decisions, you can sort of see things in a much clearer perspective of like, okay, if I switch to one of these Pokemon, again, like there's only 9 possibilities that the opponent can do. They can switch to one of their 5, or they can do one of these 4 moves. And trying to read the opponent, like, is this the best decision I can make? Like, again, you only have 9 decisions. You have to pick one of them. And you have to sort of weigh your options. You have to consider what your opponent is going to do. You have to consider all the probabilities, the risk you're willing to take. And try to make sure which of the 9 decisions you choose is the best one. And of course, as the battle progresses and Pokemon are dying, you lose potential Pokemon to switch to, so you only have a few more left. So your amount of decisions starts to whittle away. So it sort of also puts into perspective how important it is in certain situations to hang on to almost dead Pokemon, because then you have that extra option if you need it. Sometimes if you want to switch to it, let it die, so then you can switch to a different thing without taking a hit. So you can sort of like sacrifice switches, what the term is called. Or like if you're predicting your opponent to explode, you can switch in a nearly dead Pokemon to just sort of take it instead of having one of your healthy ones doing it. So again, like I always try to think about games as logically as I can and try to optimize and strategize in every way I can. And I push that a lot with Pokemon. Back on Smash Bros, I really didn't have much to contribute. I did a few like social projects on the forums, but nothing like mechanical or like gameplay wise. Pokemon I did a ton. And I'll touch on some more games in a bit. Do you want to take a little water break?
Yep.
Stay hydrated, especially in this heat.
Yeah, exactly. You've been talking an awful lot. Give you a chance to
Yeah,
get another
I
glass
can
of
I
water.
can feel it in my throat. I could use a little water. So take a little break.
We'll be back shortly. So I think you're pretty comfortably going to be in an untied second place as far as MateChat durations are going. And
Yeah, I mean, I warned you ahead of time. I'm quite long-winded about certain things. Yeah,
it is good.
but
I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying hearing all of this sort
oh,
of stuff.
that's good to hear. I hope people are enjoying it. Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, on the topic of other games, like talking Pokemon and Smash Bros. One of the things, this might sound sort of a like a silly meme almost, but when you're speedrunning, there's so many different games that you can get into that obviously all require different skills. It's important to sort of think about like if you're gonna just pick a game out of the blue, maybe you'll pick one of your favorites or something like that. But every every game has to have some sort of way to measure skill in order to differentiate players. Otherwise, everyone's just gonna be tied in the rankings, right? So one of the games I got into sort of sort of as a silly game was Cruisin' USA. It's an old arcadey racing game. If you're unfamiliar with it, it's not free roam like Mario Kart or Diddy Kong Racing or anything like that. You just basically go forward and you can sort of turn left and right. Nothing too exciting. But what was really interesting is even though the game hasn't aged well, and it wasn't that amazing even back in the day, it has a lot of good game design properties in terms of speedrunning. It has an in-game timer that is essentially a frame counter because the decimals always end in 0, 3, or 7, and it goes up like 1/30th of a second every 30th of a second. So that's pretty nice. There's not a whole lot of luck. Like there's some traffic that gets in the way, but it's not like a huge part of the game. So that's kind of nice. There's not a whole lot of RNG. Turning is pretty simple, and you can't like cheese it with like a GameCube stick, and it's quite easy to reach the sort of the maximums left and right. So it's a little easy to control, and it's not too like technical or complicated or anything like that. Furthermore, to drive, unlike say Mario Kart or Diddy Kong Racing or F Zero, there's not crazy technical buttons you have to push to do so. You just literally hold A and you go forward. That's it. And so you take all these very basic, simple things for a speed run. And the problem is, like, it sounds really good, but what you're doing is you're removing every sort of form of way to differentiate players, skill, right? You're bringing down the skill ceiling down so far that if there were more players besides just me and like one other guy, it would just be massive amounts of tides. It would put GoldenEye's world record table to shame. But it's a kind of a niche game. I literally have all the untides just because no one plays it. But having played Cruisin' USA gave me that sort of perspective of like, okay, by playing Cruisin' USA, a game that essentially has no sort of ways to measure how, like measuring how I would differentiate against a different player. Obviously, I should be competing in something that does differentiate between two players. And you have to sort of think about, like, okay, what way do I want there to be that difference? Do I want it to be like if it's a pure luck game, you're just basically playing the lottery. There's you're not really measuring skill or anything like that. Or if like say like Mario Kart 64 or something, the way that players are differentiated are in their technical skill with like handling, the cart and driving well, taking tight lines and that sort of thing. Or like an RPG game, which is extremely chaotic. The way good players differentiate themselves amongst, say, lesser players, so to speak, is their management of like knowing what to do in crazy situations or like being able to calculate all sorts of things. I'm not too familiar with the games speedrunning wise, but I believe some of the Final Fantasies there's like hundreds of numbers or something like that people have to keep track of the entire game, and that's sort of an important skill in which they're differentiating themselves from other players. So you have to think about, like, if I want to get into a competitive, not even just games or really any sort of competition, you have to think of like what are the ways in which I want to differentiate myself from my competition? And does this game that I'm playing differentiate or test skill in ways that I enjoy? And if the answer is no, you probably should play a different game. But because there's so many different games out there, you can probably find something that you like, depending on your personality and like what you are capable of and what you want to challenge yourself in ways. So like even just within GoldenEye and Perfect Dark, because we have ILs, you can sort of apply that same kind of thing um, on like an IL perspective. You can treat each level like a mini game in a sense. Playing like say Frigate 00, if you are grinding that level, you are accepting that the way you and other players are ranked amongst each other is obviously partially skill, but a lot of it is luck, of course. Or if you're really into Facility Agent, that one's pretty much kind of the polar opposite. Like there's a little bit of luck with Trev, but it's mostly all skill. And if you're grinding something, again with Goose's whole rant of like what am I doing, wasting my life speedrunning, you have to sort of think about like, okay, what am I accomplishing here? What is the goal here? And I think sort of breaking down games into like what am I being tested in speedrunning this game is an important sort of mentality, so you don't end up wasting your time on something that you don't like anyway, or you don't care about that you're good at anyway. I've done quite a bit of Mario Kart Double Dash. Like I mentioned, that was my first major speed game, and the rankings were pretty cool, and it's a pretty fun game, but I've never really been a particularly technical player, like in terms of like execution, and like to be better at Double Dash, I would have to get better at that, and I wasn't really enjoying it. Like even just a few months into the game, I was already getting burnt out. Like I dreaded having to play more of it, so I just gave it up. A lot of players maybe instead would, sort of attach their egos or just really like a sunk cost really, and just continue playing perhaps partially as an addiction, partially as escapism or whatever, and just keep going and not really thinking about like, am I testing myself in ways that's fun? And again, you can apply this to not just video games and speedrunning, but all sorts of things. Like say, I don't know, let's say like you're really into like long distance running or something like that. Like I think running's healthy. I think a lot of people should do it. But if you're like taking it to a competitive level where you're going to like races and stuff, the way in which you're competing is like your physical endurance. You have to do your training, but there's a lot of other subtle things that kind of creep in there because like money and time is also very important. Like it takes a lot to be very dedicated to a top level. You pretty much have to dedicate your life to most competitions these days, just because if you don't, someone will. And a lot of people don't have that. So even if you want to push to a competitive level in, say, sports, for example, do you have the financial security to do so? Do you have the time to do so? Like, do you have other things you have to take care of? I'm sure most people could name Tiger Woods is probably the best golfer, and maybe some like enthusiasts could name the top 10 or whatever. But like if you go down even just like into the top 100, like there are a bunch of dudes who are living in vans, driving around to golf tournaments, trying to make it big. Those are the kind of sacrifices they're making to get really good at golf. And what you're doing with golf is like you're hitting a ball really far, trying to get it into as close to a hole as possible. And the way in which you're differentiating against other people is like obviously the physical ability to do so, but also your analyzing of like aiming the ball and like accounting for wind and all these sorts of things. I'm not a golfer. I have no idea on all these fine details, but that's sort of the thing that you're doing playing golf competitively. So again, like there could be people who are just absolutely passionate for it. They love being challenged in that manner. And there's some people that might just be doing it because they don't know what else to do, or they just sort of fall into it and they're stuck or whatever. And I think because there's so many games out there that are good for speedrunning, you should try to find something that challenges you and tests your quote unquote skill, or sometimes without quotations, in ways that you enjoy. Sort of another silly way. I think a lot of people should do this again, more from the introspective purpose, is playing Cookie Clicker. Now that sounds kind of silly, but I think that it's very useful in a way because it takes away all sort of like like basically everything of a game. You just push your mouse on a cookie, you get points or whatever, and then you can use your points to get more points faster. And occasionally things will show up like, hey, you can get a higher rate of points for, you know, a minute or whatever it is, and so on and so forth. And a lot of people get hooked on these. They're sometimes referred to as idle games because you're not really playing, it's just playing itself, right?
Yep.
And essentially you're playing cookie clicker, you're doing progress for the sake of progress, not for any sort of fun purpose or like challenging purpose or like meaningful purpose. It's just a big time dump. And you can definitely sort of apply that to other games, not even just necessarily bad games, but you can sometimes do that even to GoldenEye, Perfect Dark. Like for me right now, as I mentioned, I've kind of run out of major goals. If I'm pushing my times more and I'm not enjoying what I'm doing, I'm just doing progress for the sake of progress. I was playing Rescue PA and I was not having a good time, but I pushed it and I got a decent time. And what does that do for me? Not a whole lot, but it's progress for the sake of progress. And I was thinking, no, maybe I shouldn't be doing this. I should probably do something else with my summer that I have here. And but maybe someone else will like play Rescue PA and they love the luck, they love the guard interactions and the challenges and all this sort of thing. And even if you don't like Rescue PA, but you like the sort of grander idea of like, I want to get really good at everything that Perfect Dark has to offer, Rescue PA is a part of that, even if you may not, perfectly enjoy that part. But again, like if you're doing something for the sake of itself and you're not enjoying it, or you're not sort of getting some other gain from it, you should reevaluate what you're doing with your time. And like I said, even though it does sound kind of silly, I do recommend people dabble in cookie clickers so they sort of get that firsthand perspective of, I am getting further into this game so I can get even further into the game at a faster rate. And
the cookie clicker
to infinity and beyond, right? Yeah.
It's hitting a nerve. There was a point in 2013 where I had 2 games of cookie clicker active. I had one on my work computer and I had one on my home computer going.
Very nice. Yeah. Now, I've played, I have played a lot of these kind of games, well, quote unquote play. There's quite a few of them. There's like a whole subcategory of games, and like there's tons of people that play these, which is kind of silly, but I guess it's kind of fun because you get those happy brain chemicals, your dopamine, right?
Yeah. I didn't quite realize I was doing it at the time, but I think I was not speed running it, but kind of trying to get to the X score as quickly as I possibly could, min-maxing the thing.
Yeah, you can absolutely, optimize even things like that. But once you optimize it and you have, and you know what you're doing, you sort of at least have like a rough idea of like how the game works and like the math involved. Then what are you doing?
Oh,
you're just cooking. You're clicking a cookie basically, and that's all you're doing. But yeah, like as I said, I've tried lots of other competitive games before and after speedrunning GoldenEye Perfect Dark. Like I've played tons of Diablo 2, which sort of is the same kind of thing, like progress for the sake of progress. But you're actually playing a game, which is kind of fun. It's one of those sort of standard RPGs where you grind and farm for levels and items and that sort of stuff, and it's pretty fun. I've put in probably a couple thousand hours into that as well. I've tried speedrunning other games. I tried Wave Race. Same kind of thing with Cruising USA. You just hold A, or even use elastic bands on Z does the same thing, and you just go. And all you do is you push B at a sort of pace, sort of a smooth rhythm, so that you sort of deal with the waves as they come, and then the rest is just controller stick movement. So I thought that was a kind of a neat speed game. Like, okay, I'm being challenged in the sort of finesse and the preciseness of using the controller stick and sort of moving in smooth ways, because it's not as simple as just like turning at certain things. Like you're using the full range, up, down, left, and right, to turn as smoothly as you can, but with losing the minimum amount of speed. And you have to take very tight lines, but again, it's not like GoldenEye where you just like turn. It's like it's a smooth turn, and you're going along with the waves. It's it's a little bit 3-dimensional.
Are the waves that
so I tried
are
Wave
hitting
Race
me,
for
Are they RNG or are they
They
like
are,
on timer?
yes, they are. Yeah, there's a lot of luck in Wave Race. Yeah. Um, so yeah, like playing Wave Race was kind of fun. I tried that for a bit. It was all right. I got into it, but again, it's not my kind of sort of game. Like I want to be actively thinking when I play. I don't want to just perform a technical execution or anything like that. And the other thing is, yeah, the waves are RNG, so you do have to grind for good luck, and lag is also RNG.
Oh,
I
excellent.
tried tassing Wave Race, and I could not make anything too amazing just because trying to manipulate for good lag was a nightmare, and I gave up on that pretty fast. What
What's
else have I played over
what are the
these years?
factors that
I did
make
Mario
lag?
Kart 64. I tried that. Same kind of thing with Double Dash. I got bored of just like, executing, really good technical skill. That's not to say that it's not impressive. Like I love watching Mario Kart speedruns, but it's not my kind of, it's not my cup of tea. I did do a lot of um, there was a big burst of new discoveries in the shortcut category. I did quite a few of those. Those were pretty fun because that is sort of a technical thing, like not just execution, but like there's you have to have knowledge of how these things
Yeah.
work. And it was kind of fun to try to perform in that manner. That I really enjoyed. So I've done some of that, and like tons and tons of casual games. Like it's not so much that I've just like um, gone hard with competitive gaming for all these kind of things. It's just that everything I play, I always want to be actively thinking and trying to strategize. Like, how can I get better at this? Or how can I get to my goals faster or easier or better or what have you? So even just like casual games, like something like Animal Crossing for the GameCube, I played tons and tons of that. There's all sorts of interesting mechanics of like how the items are put out and like how the villagers interact with you and how your your little town works. And there's all sorts of fun um, just like game mechanics with that. Really fun design game. Obviously, it's intended to be more of like a very, very casual, fun little coffee break type of game. But I just love thinking of games and optimizing, strategizing. So even something like Animal Crossing is not safe for me. Recently, like I've been playing Minecraft for years as well, pretty much not too long after it started getting popular back in 2010. And most recently, I've been playing Minecraft with a few other leaders. Dusky's been running the server, and in that, I've been building all sorts of automated things because, again, you can optimize your production of a lot of different materials, or like food, or uh, different sort of items that are used to craft other things. And I would build all these sort of farms that would like automatically, just farm themselves, or like at least semi-automatically, where you have to like push a button and it does it by itself, and these sorts of things. You have to like it's kind of like engineering. You have to build these things with redstone and blocks, and make sure everything makes logical sense and put it together. That was really fun. Like Minecraft as sort of a casual game is also kind of fun. Like I don't really care too much for like designing a house or like you know building pixel art or things like that. I want to think, and I want to test these ideas, and I want to strategize. And I did a lot of that with Minecraft. And again, like I can just continually name tons of games that I've done this for. I've played tons and tons, and I've spent so many. Like again, even as a kid, I was doing these kinds of things. It's really fun to me. It's a very deep passion that I have. I love
It's
it.
obviously
Yeah.
how you're
Not
wired
much more to
to
say.
play games, right? Like it's how you derive your enjoyment out of it. It's not just from playing the thing. It's about a really active, lean forward kind of experience.
Absolutely. Like there's a lot of games that I've probably spent more time analyzing than actually playing. Like something like Settlers of Catan. I've spent tons of time, trying to think about how to handle like it's a board game. I don't know if people are familiar with it. It's kind of popular, but it's random maps, and there's resources you have to collect, and you have to win 10 points to win the game, and there's all sorts of analyzing you can do with that. And I've probably spent more time looking into the mathematics of the game rather than actually playing the game, because again, that's where I derive the fun from it. To Luke's question about me sleeping, I am actually a very strong, what's the word? Like I very deeply believe in getting good sleep. I have a lot of free time through not getting too involved in other. Yeah, proponent. Yes, yes. I've never really been one to do crazy parties or stuff. Most of my close friends are all gamers as well. A lot of them do the same kind of thing. I have pretty good time management, and again, like I've been doing this type of stuff since I was 2, so it's not like I did all this kind of thing in just the recent years or anything. It's pretty much all my life. So, but yes, I get plenty of sleep, and I highly encourage everyone to do so because sleep is very good for you. So yeah, again, just time management, and it's my primary hobby. So that's where the time into these things comes from.
I guess one of the things that we haven't really spoken about yet is the level that you, I guess, most recently contributed to breaking with infill. So,
yeah, okay, go ahead.
I guess it seems like, looking back at it, it's like it seems obvious. You've got so many lifts, so why haven't we broken it until now? Like what kind of contributed to that?
Yeah, I didn't actually contribute a whole lot to that. Most of that was initially Henrik, and then just a mishmash of like MW, Alchemass. Sam Fisher did a small contribution. Basically, I was just bringing up like, hey, we can do the hover bike out of bounds in Crash PA. There's a hover bike in infill. Maybe there's some way to do this. And this isn't like a new concept. Like pretty much as soon as Crash was broken, I jumped immediately to infill. But I was just never able to find a way to get out, or at least in a useful way. And it just so happened, like after bringing up that idea, the new infill strat was found. So more of a coincidence, really. I didn't play too much in that. The one thing I did contribute though is after it came out, I decided to make a tool-assisted run to get a rough idea of like how far Agent could go, and instead of doing the bike ending where you go into the last room and you hop on the rails, or even just use the bike and like drive through it, I came up with the idea of the lure, and it was a very primitive lure. It's not as good as the one that we now use, which I believe Ilu was the one who pushed for the new lure. So I did a little bit of contribution with that, but yeah, I didn't have a whole lot of play in infiltration new strat. I just sort of coincidentally sparked it, but I wouldn't really say that I'm a major part of that strat.
One of the questions that Spicy wanted me to ask is, do you have a prediction on which level will be broken next?
I mean, a lot of it always just comes to what people are playing. I mean, Aztec, quote unquote, has been sort of broken. Not quite in the same manner as like other levels have seen.
It's certainly been optimized, right? Like
it's been, yeah, I think optimized is a better word for it. Yeah, for sure. Like this is the way you play it. Like Henrik Glass is getting obsoleted, which is nice.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing is, like as I've said, I've spent thousands of hours studying the levels, and I couldn't, like everything that I've ever found, obviously I've shared at this point. So the way to answer, like to give like a proper answer to predicting what level would be broken next, would probably be something that has lots of complexities to it and lots of ways you can combine things in different manners. So perhaps something like Rescue PA or Defection PA, or perhaps Escape on the GoldenEye side. I mean, maybe Aztec could see something new. Perhaps Bunker 200, but other than that, like, I always say this every time a level gets broken, like it's very possible that's the last major break, because you can't go infinitely. You can't push times indefinitely. Like even if you were to push them all to like 1 second and that's the end, that is the limit. There is a limit somewhere.
Yes.
And it's always hard. Like it's hard to prove the non-existence of a strategy. Yep. So, it's hard to say. But if I were to guess, I would probably say either Bunker 2 or Rescue.
Being a very thoughtful person, you've probably thought about some sort of stories that you want to share that we might not have touched on yet. Is there anything that you wanted to, any kind of interesting stories that you wanted to talk about that we haven't covered yet?
I mean, I could go into basically every major sort of meta concept of like competition in gaming and all these sorts of things. I think a good way, like, we've been here for quite a few hours, and as fun as it is, I don't want this to go forever. So I will say this, however, for newer players who are trying to find their way in speedrunning and trying to decide what they want to do with speedrunning, or really any sort of competition if you want to, sort of expand it from somewhere else, be very conscious and aware of what you're doing and what your goals are and what you're trying to do. And try to always play for yourself. Like, it's very easy to get caught up in play in a manner that you feel that you should be playing, or you might feel the social pressure of other people pushing you to do certain things that you may not want to do. I think it's very important to always play for yourself. And with the amount of data that we have in GoldenEye Perfect Dark and all the manners in which we measure how good players are, there's so many different ways you can do this. Like, you can push for point ranks, you can push for time ranks, you can push for being really good at a single level, you can push for being really good at a single IL. You could be really good at agent, you could be really good at LTK, you could be really well-rounded, you could, in a greater perspective, push for the rankings as a whole to be as optimized as possible, encouraging the entire community to be really good. There's all sorts of different things. Like, goals are not these simple sort of set of possibilities. Like, you can create goals in all sorts of ways that you can fathom. So I think it's good to spend the time and think about, what do I want to do here? Why am I spending my time doing this? And trying to figure out, what is your goal? Am I doing progress for the sake of progress, or am I pushing for a goal that I want to achieve? So I think I'll leave it at that before going on for another 7.5 hours or something.
We'll have to have part two for that.
Regarding the question in the chat recording, the sliding glitch will it ever be solved? The best way to figure that out is to study the raw code of the game. Like, the function explorer is just the scripts of the game. It won't tell you, the raw sort of assembly level code. So I think we're going to have to wait on your eliteness to perhaps give us some leads on how that might work. But there does seem to be consistency in what happens and what is causing it, but there's still like no way to control it. Making it somewhat consistent really depends on what is causing it, and that's unknown, so we can't say for sure. But I think it's going to be, I would guess that the sliding glitch is a combination of all sorts of weird variables interacting in, just a really odd way, and probably at an extreme precision that you will never be able to control. So I don't think it will ever be consistent in play, but again, there's too many unknowns. You can't know that for sure. So we'll have to wait and see, and maybe YE will be able to help us.
If it's understood to that level, and there is ways to manipulate it, it might make tassing PD really interesting.
Absolutely, yeah. So yeah, that is one thing. Like, if you're playing with task tools and you have the memory addresses from any sort of variables that are important. Now, granted, if it's extremely precise, it's still going to be hard to even do it as a task, but it could certainly be possible. And that could certainly open up a whole new world of tasking. Imagine, just sliding all across the maps, say something like SOS, or, something like Crash Site, just flying all over the place. Who knows? We'll have to see. Luke asks, can you see any GoldenEye strats utilize out of bounds in the future or no? So GoldenEye's out of bounds works very differently than Perfect Dark, because when you go out of bounds, you tend to only keep the section that you left still loaded, as opposed to wherever it is you're going, whereas Perfect Dark sort of loads as you go. So when the sort of train thing came out, the sort of Swiss clip, as we called it, quite a few people explored potential out-of-bound, hypotheticals by just placing themselves outside with emulators and tools and that sort of thing. And a lot of it doesn't work in the way you would think. Like if you go onto streets and you clip out of bounds and you run to where the end zone would be, it doesn't work because you're not loading the area. The area that you initially clipped out of is the only one that's still loaded, so the level doesn't finish. The only out of bounds possibilities that would be useful is if you can clip out of bounds and then somehow clip back in and then load the new area that you're in. I believe Whitehead has a sort of hypothetical thing with control where, pardon me, where you clip out of the door by Nat in control, and then you clip back into the level. But he had to use like emulator tools to like physically move his character into a different point, almost like quantum leaping, as opposed to like going through in like a natural game mechanic way. And other possibilities like that could potentially exist. Say like on Aztec, you just sort of clip out of bounds, maybe in the exhaust way, and then you clip back inbounds into the big room. But it doesn't seem like out of bounds is consistent in any way. It seems extremely glitchy, and like your game is about to explode when it happens. So I would probably say no, but again, that's one of those things that you can never know for sure. But probably not.
Yeah, interesting. I guess without wanting to drag it out too much, thanks very much for coming on, being so articulate about all of these things. It's been
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a lot of fun. Yeah, thanks for having me. I hope people enjoyed it and maybe learned a thing or two, and maybe hopefully some new things to think about and maybe reflect on and build on that, because I highly recommend it. So yeah, again, thanks for having me. It's been fun.
Look, it's been a very interesting one, and there's been quite a few people here enjoying it, so been well received. So
great, thanks. That's good to hear.
Thanks for coming on. We'll talk to you later.
Okay, see you later. Good night.